We are now. Hello, welcome everybody. My name is Wrath. We are here with, I don't know what I'm going to call this, maybe Under the Table. Under the Table is our talk show where we, after a D&D session, or a TTRPG session, I should say, we come around a show called Under the Table where we break down the session and talk about it. This is not that. So maybe it needs its own name. I don't know how I plan on doing it, but this is a brand new talk show potentially that could be happening, where basically me and my friends show up here and talk nerds stuff with you. Anyone's welcome to join us in the chat. You can ask us all kinds of questions, talk about anything related to RPGs in general. It could be tabletop RPGs, it could be video game RPGs, it could be about your D&D campaign, it could be anything that has to do with anything. So that's about it. That's all the intro. It's very unscripted. It's very unorganized. It's just us hanging out. Right now, I've got a good friend of mine, a cousin of mine, family, named Tough Nuts. You can see him on screen here. He is, well, let me shut up. Why don't you tell us, right as you take a bite, why don't you tell us your, I mean, where do you come from as far as RPGs, TTRPGs, all that stuff?
So, fairly new. As far as like fantasy worlds and all that, I've played Lord of the Rings online for years and know that story pretty well, just outside the game too. But I've also played tons of WoW, all the MMOs, kind of my world, and then like some single player RPGs too, like the classics of like Skyrim and Witcher and stuff.
Yeah.
But like pretty limited on that too. But I'm just now starting to get into the D&D stuff. I've done one in-person campaign a long time ago that was completely a homebrew. It was really good. And then I did another one online not too long ago with you and Pickles and a few folks, and so that's pretty much it. But I'm getting ready to DM my own campaign in person.
Yeah, boy stepping into the big leagues. He said, fuck your level 1 bullshit. I'm going straight to DM.
Yeah, well, the group I'm going to be with, no one really has experience, and so someone had to step up.
Someone had to be the DM. You ended up being it. Yeah, I was gonna say MMOs are, I think, a big part of the RPG world. It's one that I'm not really involved in because we all know MMOs and I do not get along. We are mortal enemies. A tale as old as time. But I think MMOs are a huge part of the RPG family. It's just one that's not always, I don't know, it's one I don't relate to, so I'm always like, oh yeah, I guess our MMOs work too. But I mean, you look at WoW, you look at Elder Scrolls Online, you look at Lord of the Rings Online, you look at, I mean, those are all classic fantasy stories, but you could even go as far as, I was wondering, what's the Star Wars online stuff? Like, that's all RPGs too. I mean, that would even fall in. It's just a different setting. But it counts too. And even that's far fantasy and far futuristic. But then there's like the D&D, or the Savage Worlds is the name of the system. It's a Savage Worlds campaign. It's like D&D, but a different system. It's not D&D, it's Savage Worlds. Called The Strange Tale of Golden Ridge, which is airing this Sunday. Season 2 is airing this Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That one is a modern day fantasy, not really fantasy, modern day paranormal horror mystery game. And even that would qualify as RPG. So RPG spans a lot. Everything. I guess maybe we went a little too broad with our topic.
No, I mean, here's the thing with MMOs.
Yeah, let's talk MMOs. I got thoughts.
Well, for a second, because you were talking about like, how it's relevant to RPGs, and a lot of MMOs have MMORPG in the name.
Oh, but, yeah. That's true, yeah.
But they're not gonna, typically, I can't speak for all of them, but typically they're not gonna like tell a story as good as like a dedicated full RPG game.
True.
You know, like they're trying to do more than just that, and a big aspect of an MMO is the player to player interaction and like community of it.
See, and that's the part I hate the most.
Right. Well, that's just a big part of the game.
No,
So,
I get it.
um,
Um,
but they are fantastic. The advantage that they have is they're around for a really long time, so they can develop their stories for a really long time.
it's true. Yeah.
And there's some things that you can do when there's other players involved with storytelling that you just can't do in a single player game.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it's like I remember when I was first looking at MMOs, kind of not when WoW first came out because that was too long ago, but more of I don't know, when I got to a point where I was discovering MMOs and kind of feeling it out, the biggest thing I wanted was I wanted multiplayer Skyrim. I love Skyrim. I love the world, Oblivion, all of that, Elder Scrolls, and like even Dragon Age, these games. I don't know if you've played them, but these games and these worlds where I was just like, this is amazing, and like I put hundreds and hundreds of hours into Skyrim, which I thought was a lot until I met games like Ark and others where I put in thousands of hours. But when I was first discovering MMOs, I was so happy. I was so happy because I was like, it's just I can play Skyrim with my friends. That's
yeah,
wonderful. And then I got on, and I think it was WoW. I got on WoW, and there's like people driving by on motorcycles, and like people like dancing, running past, and it was just like chaos. And I was like, this is not Skyrim. I was like,
no.
this sucks. I was like, this ruined the game for me. Like, think about going into Skyrim, right? Your first time playing Skyrim, and I'm just using Skyrim because a lot of people will relate to this and understand it. Your first time watching The Lord of the Rings, right? And and you get in, and a clown car rolls up, and 20 people jump out, honk all these horns, go, blah, 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 and then just dance away with a hippo, and you're like, that would ruin the movie. There's a reason they didn't put that in the movie, and that was my experience with MMOs, and that just put that was my immediate. I got into WoW, and I was like, well, ruined. I don't want anything to do with this. I was like, and it was everywhere I went. That was it. The other thing that I found with MMOs, and this was Pickles related to this at one point when we were talking about this. Hopefully he'll be joining us at some point. With something like WoW, or I'll talk about my experience with the Lord of the Rings one. With WoW, I got in and I spent hours. Collect 3 of these tails. Okay? Went and got them, came back. Collect 3 more of the same tail.
Yeah.
Okay, went and did it, came back. Now collect 3 of that same creature, but get the venom gland instead of the tail. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that in the beginning? I could have. Okay. Yeah. And hours later, I'm like, I'm still doing the same thing.
So that was an issue. That is an issue with a lot of MMOs.
Yeah, it's not just WoW. I know that.
Yeah, but with WoW specifically, I mean, WoW is a really old game, and when you were playing the MMO, since I'm assuming it's not in the last like 5 years.
No, this was a while ago.
Yeah. So they used to have the system where you'd start at the beginning of the content, which was 15-year-old content, and that's what it was like really generic, kind of trivial, boring quests.
Mm-hmm.
I will say their storytelling in modern content is way better. And they do that through quests. That's like the primary driver of it.
Yeah.
But until like a few years ago, you couldn't do the new content until you did the old crappy content. So there were no new players. Yeah, there were no new players joining.
So it was one of those, like, say you've got a TV series and like season 7's amazing, but you're not allowed to watch season 7 until you watch season 1 through 6.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, that old content worked when it first came out because it was new and fresh, but now it's like so outdated. And what they did is now you can level through any of the expansions, so you can choose the story you want to go through, and it's modern content and it's a lot better. And they have like a new intro experience that's like to introduce players to the game for the first like 10 levels, and it's separated from like the rest of the world's busyness. And so it's a better experience. And I'm not saying you should go do it, but it's better than it was like 10 years ago.
No, that's good. That's good to hear. In my so going off of that, some of my this was I don't know a couple years ago at this point I think. Some of friends of mine and we decided to get into Lord of the Rings online because I love Lord of the Rings. I never really played the game. I just knew it was an MMO, so I didn't touch it. But we decided we're gonna do a let's play of this MMO. I think that's my first mistake. I don't think you can do a let's play of an MMO. I don't think there really is a episode 1, episode 2. I mean, you could, I guess, but I couldn't. My biggest complaint is we progressed and we put in a good amount of time. Like we were moving along, we were having fun. There was a point in time where we got to the hobbits, this area with hobbits, and we became mail delivery men for about 3-4 hours. And we all quit the game. Like at that point, all of us were like, "I'm done. I'm not playing this anymore." We were literally delivering mail between hobbits who didn't live that far. They could have just talked to each other for hours, and like we were just following along with the story, like learning the characters, doing our thing, and like hours passed. We're sitting here like, have we really just been running back and forth delivering mail for the last like 3 hours? Like, how is this? No one's gonna watch this. We're not enjoying playing it. Like, it was bad. It's one of those things where I felt it took me back to original WoW, where it was like collect 3 tails, collect 3 more tails, collect 3 more red tails. I'm like, oh my god.
So I haven't played Latro for 10 years, like not seriously at least, but
yeah, because I remember when I was getting into it, I was like, "Hey, man," and you're like, "Been there, done that." You're like,
yeah,
I've conquered it,
I couldn't
bought the
get back
shirt.
into it. So here's the thing with that game, because I also like Lord of the Rings is like
Oh,
my
yeah. I think
that's like
I remember when
everything
I
for me.
first discovered it, I thought it was really cool, and then I went and hung out with you, and you had like the map, the everything. I was like, "Oh yeah, no, you think it's cool."
Yeah. I'm like I read all the books, and I playing Lord of the Rings as much as I did actually taught me a lot about the world, because the cool thing about that game is their story follows chapter by chapter the real books.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, and so it's one of the most accurate retellings of the story that you can get. Like, it's more accurate than the movies. The only thing that's better, obviously, is just reading the books.
Mm-hmm.
But that aspect of it was so cool, especially loving that world. But the the game was so outdated and just old feeling. Like
They
all
haven't
the
kept
game
up with it.
mechanics and stuff. Sorry?
They didn't keep up with it and keep updating and get it, current
It
day.
Yeah, it just I don't know how else to describe it, but just like it felt like you were playing just an old game. Like Baldur's Gate we're playing, it would be
Mm-hmm.
like playing Baldur's Gate 1 when there's Baldur's Gate 3's out.
Yeah, and that's another thing I was thinking about because like even WoW, I feel like WoW has done a really good job of keeping up with the times,
Hmm.
and like obviously it takes a lot of money to do that. WoW is probably a lot bigger franchise, a lot bigger
Hmm.
series than Lotro because I've heard a lot more about WoW and their marketing at least seems better than Lotro.
Well, the player count is like worlds higher. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So I'm sure they have the money to do it better. Um, but yeah, I mean, you got to keep up with the times. I remember I got into Lotro and like I thought it was great, but it really felt like I was playing like an original like PlayStation 2 game with the graphics, where
I think
they got like square faces, and you're just like, oh god.
yeah,
Like I mean, it's a fun game, but you got to get
I
past the
think it
graphics.
is better now.
Or like
I
classic
can't confirm.
RuneScape if you've ever played that.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Latro changed ownership. Um the company that originally made it sold it to another company, and it sounds, from what I've heard, that company's done good things.
Oh, that's cool.
Um but I haven't played it, so I can't confirm myself.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, because then I see other ones like New World came out, and that was one that we were going to get into and play, and I thought that would seem really cool. It was a different idea. I was kind of in with it. It was kind of different. It wasn't like a classic fantasy. It was a different story. I don't know. You put way more time into it than I gave it. But that is another MMO that came out. I feel like it blew up and then died. I don't know.
Yeah,
I stopped hearing about it. Like it was
they
one of those.
it was an awesome game. I still think it has a ton of potential, but they when they released it had no concept of what their end game would be,
Mm,
and so everyone hit max level, and then everyone's like, "Well, now what?" Like the
okay.
game sucks now.
Yeah.
So
So then they all
um,
left.
yeah, and they've actually that one's another one where I've gone back to it, and it's a lot better now.
Oh, okay.
Uh, the one thing that I hate about that game is all the resources because I love crafting in MMOs,
Yep.
and in New World I really like the systems
The
of like
resource
going out.
gathering. I thought they
Yeah,
did really well with that. I was impressed.
yeah, I loved that. And like in the early game, like that's all I did was just like I made a living off of just gathering and selling and all that. But you just can't do it now because all the resources in the world are like once someone takes it, then it disappears for like 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, and now their player
And
base just got so big that
yeah,
they were
they haven't
just
made enough servers, so it's
mass
just like
harvesting.
yeah, like every node in the game, like there's just someone standing at it waiting for it to respawn.
Oh,
So you like
jeez.
can't collect anything. And
That reminds
that
me
for
of
me was
like
like,
classic RuneScape where people would go to school and they'd leave their guy fishing.
yeah,
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 it's one of those.
yeah.
Huh.
So you just can't. I don't know.
So
That's enough for me to quit.
that's the big thing. So like I I mean there's so New World didn't have the same problem for me as well. It didn't have boring quests. I didn't feel like I got bored by it. It didn't have a I don't want to say toxic player base, but clown characters and like
Yeah,
stuff to
I
where
agree.
like I didn't get into the game and immediately have like a clown car roll up with people going "Blah, blah, blah," and like it just being grossed out. I was immersed. I think that's what it is. WoW kills my immersion because of all the
Yeah,
weird shit they added. But with
I
New World,
agree with that.
I didn't feel that. I it was great, but it still has the paramount critical issue for me, which is, and we've talked about this. There's so many different ways to play an MMO that it's so hard to find someone who plays similar to what you do, and so you end up playing a single player game.
Yeah,
Because even you and I got into that game together around the same time, if I remember right. And we were playing together, and that lasted, I don't know, a day before we were both off doing our own thing. And I think I came back, and you guys had a guild, and there was you had a guild, and I think our other cousin had a guild, and there was just you guys were like 50 levels higher than me, and I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna see them. I was like, all right.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that is a tough thing with MMOs because a lot of like I'm used to playing MMOs where most of the game is once you're max level, um, and so I've been through the leveling process so many hundreds of times that like I usually just try to get there,
Yeah, and
and
that I could
not
see.
everyone plays that way. Like I have on WoW, I think I've got almost 50 characters at max level. So I've just done it so many times that it's like I want to do the rest of the stuff. And I understand like that's a big part of the game, especially if you've not played through the game before. So
Yeah.
it's hard to find people that want to do that.
Yeah, and that's like I got into WoW again. This was years ago, but I got into WoW, and I got in with I think a couple of friends. We all started new characters. A couple of friends. I think my ex got in. I think she had played it before, but we all started new characters because we were like, okay, we'll do a let's play together, right? And we all got in, and I think we were together for like 5 minutes, and then I was reading quests and like trying to learn the story because I hadn't played the game, and I'm like, okay, I think I was like a blood elf or something, and I was meeting characters and reading and learning the story, and I was like, okay, like we got our first quest, like this is what we have to go do, and they're like, yeah, we've already done all that, we're in the next town, we got mounts, so once you get that, come catch up with us, and I was like,
Yeah,
uninstall. So it's been a consistent every time I've tried to get in, it's been just
I think if you wanted
gross.
to do it, you just have to go in with the mindset of like I'll level alone and learn the story, like as if you're playing a single player RPG.
But that's the whole thing. It's the reason I mean, I could go play Skyrim, which has a better story, which has a better game for single player. The whole thing is I want to play with friends, but if I go play with my friends, it ruins the experience, and then it's like you either get the experience or you get to play with friends. You can't have both.
Yeah. If you had a friend commit to doing the story with you, because I've done that with Adam, which maybe we'll hear from him later today, but we've done that where every time there's a new expansion that comes out, we don't rush through the leveling because it's new content, and we'll read everything, and we actually RP it to each other, so we'll read the different characters to each other.
No, yeah, see, that's great for Let's Play.
Right. So like we do that the first time we see it, but then it's really hard to convince someone to do that a second time.
Yeah, probably. They're like, yeah, I've been there, done that. This is taking forever.
Yeah, so you got to find someone who's not done the content and is willing to do that.
Yeah, how many people nowadays are out there who haven't played WoW, would actually be interested in playing WoW, and would actually be playing it in a way where you don't just play an MMO?
So what's cool about their new system though is you get to choose, like, you level a character from your level 1 start all the way to max level in the scope of one expansion. And so, and they've released, I think, like 9 or 10 expansions at this point. And so, what's cool about that is, it's you probably would be able to find people that haven't played every expansion of WoW, because that's like 15 years of playing or something like that. And so you could pick expansions that someone hasn't seen and go do new story together.
Yeah.
And every character you level, like you could level 10 characters and they could all play basically different games to get to max level, which is cool.
Yeah, that is, I mean, it's great. Like I said, MMOs are a paramount member of the RPG family for sure. It's just not one I've been able to get behind.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that the two of us are on, because I'm the one who's like, MMOs don't work for me. And you're like, all I do is MMOs.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, well, I just downed a burrito. Took a little bit longer than I wanted, but it's fine. Had to get some food in my belly. I was starving. We're back. If you guys are just tuning in, this is a random talk show where we're talking on RPGs, TTRPGs, video game RPGs, MMORPGs, all kinds of stuff. I believe we were mid-conversation about MMORPGs. I don't remember where we landed. But during this quick little... basically. During this intermission, we were talking whiskey and decanters, and somehow it turned to whatever I'm about to look at. What am I looking at?
Yeah, so we were talking about Etsy and how you think it's useless, but I wanted to show you something I bought off of it for a D&D campaign.
Okay.
So I'm getting ready to run the Lost Mines of Phandelver, which most people who are into D&D probably know.
Probably know. If you've ever played D&D 5th edition, you've probably heard of the Lost Mines of Phandelver. One of the intro modules the game released with. Very popular. I'm not very familiar with D&D 5e, so unfortunately.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll change that. We'll see.
You guys need to convince Tough Nuts to come on here and DM.
Yeah, I need to convince myself. But yeah, like I have like all the maps for the campaign. So like this is the big area, and then this has some spoilers for players, so I won't show them that. But all the dungeons, and then the dungeon spoilers and like rooms and stuff.
Okay.
So I got that for like each place. This is the town.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen this map before. Yeah.
So, and anyway, so that's those. And if you switch back to me for a second, let me grab something here. Just a sec. Right. So I've got these all like printed out on big posters. Oh, hold on.
Maybe.
censored for.
Yeah, censored some viewers. No spoilers.
But yeah, I've got like the town here, and I did all these with like dry erase lamination, so I can write on them. And
Yeah,
stuff.
mark them up. I love that, man. I miss doing in-person groups. You don't get that kind of hands-on creativity, and but I don't know. I'm one of those DMs where like I would have like chalices around the table for everybody, make sure everybody has a drink, and then like when you hit the tavern, everybody does the cheers, and like yeah, you get immersed, you get into your character, you have fun with it, role play.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so
that's why when I saw you had a bunch of there we go. Would you mind killing your stream unless you're still wanting the stream?
Yo, I was still running it, so.
Oh, you had more to show. I'm sorry. I'm getting back into it. Yeah. So when you showed me that you had all these like handouts and stuff, it made me miss it so much because with online, I mean, you can just show that to the player and they don't really. I mean, they're like, oh, okay, cool. It doesn't like have that effect,
Right. Right. And it's also just in general like a lot of work. Like I'm trying to let's see. I can't remember which one is what. So like this one is like these are all things that like I just got. I paid $10 on Etsy, and they had like created forms for like everything you could need in your campaign. Which I realize I'm running a pre-made one.
I've done stuff like this, like myself made them. A lot of times people like they just I don't know because I've done this stuff where I've made it myself, like gone in and created these handouts and all this stuff. But online, it doesn't have the same effect. You give it to the players, and they're like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like, all right.
Yeah, yeah, and it feels that much worse if you've gone through the work of making it. But bless you.
I was like, wait, did I mute myself? I did.
But yeah, I I printed all these out and laminated them so that I can reuse it for a campaign in the future.
I was going to say, cool. One of those said 10 gold, the other one said 100. How much are they getting paid?
Yeah, these are different parts of the story.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Like this one, for example, I have a letter that would drop off a goblin at some point when they kill a goblin, and they won't be able to read
it translated.
Yeah, and so if they can speak goblin, or if they find someone that can, or maybe they intimidate the goblin to like read it or something, I don't know, then you can see like what it actually says.
I love it. See, I love stuff like that. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, like this one's cool. You can't read the full
you showed me this thing. One. This one I'm a fan of.
Yeah, you can't read it. And I went on the in-person one, which I could show you, but I like burnt the edges and stuff, so it like cuts off part of the text and stuff. And if they are able to mend it, like they get the intact copy, which is just cool. Like you actually get to see some magic happening at the table.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. What is this? What's the importance of the form? Like, why would I go and use a spell to mend this form? What do they get from this besides me sitting here and having to read it all?
Yeah, from this one in particular, it gives them some context about this lost mine that they're trying to find.
Okay.
And it gives them some information about some things in it, so that when they go, they can get like better rewards that they may not know about.
Yeah, and help them prep so that way they bring the right stuff. They know what they're getting in for. Like say, I don't know exactly what's in here, but I'm just going off the riff here. Say there's rumor in this thing, like no one knows where this mine is or what's in there, but you find the script of someone who found it and survived or something, and you've got this form, and in that form it says, hey, there's, I don't know, undead in there. So then in your party you could be like, oh, the wizard is like, I'm gonna make sure I have radiant magic prepped when we go in there, so that way I'm actually effective when we go down there. So, something like that to where it helps them, like, it really shows that they get a boost. Because I think that's a big thing for players is, am I actually getting any reward from this?
Right.
I think that's a huge motivation.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, it's a really real way of them feeling like they got something instead of me just saying like, oh, just you get one inspiration or something.
Yeah. I feel like that's, I agree. I think I don't want to generalize this, but DMs have gotten lazy with online gaming, to where that's very common. Oh yeah, you get an inspiration. It's like, all right, cool, thanks. Like, there's no impact, there's no heart or feeling behind it. And that's what I love about D&D, is that you know, huzzah, you know, where people are like high-fiving, like, we killed the dragon, like, woo, like, you know, there's that emotion behind it. And there's been too many, like, I've watched a lot of online games, whether it's my own or like it's something I want to do with my own, but I gotta work on like how to do it because I want to do it right. You can't force it. You can't be like, okay, now the players cheer. Yeah, like, that's not gonna. It's not the same. So you gotta. I don't know. I gotta figure out how to do it on an online group. I mean, with an in-person group, I feel like it's easier to kind of get people to interact and engage. But online, people, I mean, I've seen it in my own games where my players are just like, typing on their computers and stuff, and I'm like,
no, I think the challenge for me with this group is going to be everybody's new, and so everyone I've talked to so far, with the exception of Adam, because he's seen some D&D and is familiar with it, but like everyone else, they're like worried about just understanding the game and like how to play. And
the biggest thing for new players, they don't need to know any of the rules. That's your job. All they have to do is be like, I have a sword, I have a bow, I have magic, I have an instrument. I want to use that in some way. And then it's up to them to be creative. You know, maybe it's a bard. He's like, I want to play in my music, and I really would just want to calm the crowd because we're about to get our ass kicked. And then he sees the fighters just like, I want to swing my axe, and he's like, never mind. I kick up a rock hard music tune, and I want to hype this guy up. And those are things you can actually do in D&D. And it's like, you would know, like, I know what you're trying to do. I know the rules behind that. You're giving him bardic inspiration and giving him a boost to his attack and maybe turning the crowd, and they're actually going to go in your favor rather than the local, bully who they're all scared of because you guys have this rock hard music playing as you're like trying to fight. And all they have to do is just be like, I've got an instrument. I play a rock tune that's like our theme music. Okay, now you guys are known to have theme music. Like, you guys are a well-known, party. You have your own traveling minstrel who, like fanfare when you walk in the room. As a new player, all they have to know is, I have an instrument. I play badass music. Okay, cool. You can do that. And it has effects. So it's not so much like, okay, what is my proficiency? What's the role plus you can, I mean, for the first adventure, for even the first, couple of sessions, however long it takes them to start understanding and start picking up, they don't need to know all that. You could just say, hey, roll a d20, add 5. That's all they need to know. That's not that hard. You roll a dice and you add 5 to whatever it is. Perfect. Easy. Done.
Yeah, and I'll be able to see all their character sheets easily, so I can help them with that. And, I'm not as worried about it. I need to make sure I understand everything with the format, or with the...
Maybe when you run your system. When you run your game, just have me on the laptop, like, watching. Oh, yeah. I'll just be over there like, oh, that was a great move. Ooh. I don't even need to play. I'll just watch. Like, oh, that's a great idea. Do that.
You can stream us playing.
I would 100% stream you guys playing.
I won't tell everyone, so they're all comfortable and just doing their thing.
Yeah, you just set up a camera and just be like, this is recording for me to go back and watch after so I can get better.
Yeah. Here, just a second. Adam's calling me. Let me talk to him real quick.
Rude. All right, just mute yourself.
Yeah.
So anyways, chat. Hi. How's it going? Any thoughts so far? Like the new talk show? We're only an hour in. Plenty of time. I thought other people would be joining in, but so far no one's wanted to. Pop out. Let's see. Yep. No one's popping in. Whatever. Maybe they'll join later. I'm running on like 2 hours of sleep, and I'm here. Let's go. I want to talk King's Crossing too. I'm so hyped for King's Crossing, and I want to do better with King's Crossing. I really want to do more. I got to figure out, like we were talking about with his game, how he's got like these handouts and he's burnt edges of it and stuff. I want to do that. I think we're gonna do a weekly DMs workshop. I think we need to bring that back because I think that's huge. I think it'll be fun.
What are we bringing back?
It's called DM's Workshop. It's a series I used to do where we sit down and we work on our campaign. That could be anything from making NPCs, like how I make NPCs, the story behind them, like da-da-da, and chat can help. They could be like, oh, this guy should be like a, maybe he was an adventurer in his past, and then they add to it. Or it could be like, hey, I want to understand magic better. We're gonna read up on magic and read through the book and learn about it, or it could be, oh, I want to prep this adventurer. What do I need to prep to make sure they're ready for the next session? I want to get handouts where I burn the edges. Okay, we're gonna do that on stream.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think we need to bring that
like
back.
that idea.
So I was talking about how I am hyped for King's Crossing. It's been confirmed that it's being brought back for part 2. So I'm like, I want to start prepping for part 2 and making sure it's ready to go. And I was like, I want to take your newbie gains of being motivated, being hyped, and creating stuff, and I want to take feed from that and start doing it myself.
Yeah, makes sense.
Who's this?
Yeah, except would there be spoilers? Also, hey Adam.
Yes.
Hello.
Dear God, you're loud.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I'm tweaking audio. How you doing, brother?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm
Brett?
good, man. I'm good.
Yeah. Long time no talk.
Yeah. It's been a minute, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, welcome in. We're talking RPGs and stuff.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. What's your experience? Where you come from? You ever played a game? Ever played D&D? Ever played an MMO? Anything RPG at all? Ever?
Yeah. So, long-time listener to a couple of different Dungeons and Dragons podcasts. Never actually played before, so I'm excited to get my first set of characters built for the one that I'm doing with Tough Nuts over here.
I have to say, you're probably gonna want Adam in your campaigns, Wrath, because he goes above and beyond with his character creation.
He's more than welcome.
He's so good.
I'm curious. You say set of characters. You're bringing more than one character to the game.
Well, it's in my experience, it's good to have backups. Boy Scout, be prepared.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I built 3.
Jeez. Yeah, because you never know what happened. I mean, it all depends on your DM. Because some games, they're like, hey, you've worked really hard on this character. It would throw off the whole party vibe and the story if we just had to bring in a new character at the last minute because you died or something. So it's like, your new character would come in, have no connection to the story that you guys have built this whole time, like all this stuff. So that can be a huge wrench to throw into the plans. But some DMs, like myself, are like, this is a very dangerous world. You guys are fighting dragons. You could die. Like, the reality that it is there and it is a possibility makes it all the more rewarding when you guys are high-fiving at the end of the fight, being like, yo, we just slayed a dragon! Like, woo! Like, cheers, because your character didn't die. You guys, you did good. So it all depends on the DM and kind of the vibe of the party. But it never hurts. It never hurts to have extra characters. I'm curious, you say long-time listener. If you've never played them, what made you want to start listening to like D&D podcasts and stuff? Also, chat. What up, Fred? How you doing? You're more than welcome to pop in. Fred's another. He's actually one of the players in my game. But yeah. Question stands.
Sure. Yeah. So, I grew up playing World of Warcraft with Tough Nuts over there. So that was always my draw to the MMO RPG world and my introduction into RPG. But after that, being at work, D&D podcasts I find are some of the most enjoyable things to listen to get me through the day. And keeps a little bit of like unknowing of what's happening next in the back of that story, which I find makes it that much more enjoyable.
That makes sense. Yeah, I've heard it multiple different ways because I've listened to D&D podcasts and RPG TTRPG podcasts as a whole, different systems, and I'm very picky with them because there's some where like I vibe with them immediately, and it's all I don't know. Tough Nuts just talked about this. I believe it was. Where were we talking? Maybe this was on our own time. I can't remember when we were talking about this, but about how meshing with the players and DM and stuff can be a big factor. And even as a listener, I feel like that's huge because I've heard some where I'm like, oh god, I could not listen to this for like an hour. Like, there's no way. And then I've heard some where I've listened to like 200 episodes. So I think it varies. But then a good friend of mine, Mr. Pickles, he's like, I don't understand why anyone would watch a D&D stream or listen to it. Like, playing it is the fun part. Sitting there listening is boring. I disagree. Obviously, I'm assuming you do too.
He watches Harmon Quest.
Yeah, I also watch Harmon Quest, Dimension 20, but most of the ones that I mostly enjoy are those really long-running real play podcasts because you get to learn about you get to listen to them go through the rules as you're sitting there, and that's mostly where most of my background comes from on the actual tabletop RPG scene goes from. So I'm looking forward to this first campaign to see how well that translates to actual play.
Yeah, who knows? You might know more about it than Tough Nuts.
Definitely.
Yeah. Fred asked do you mind if I join? Are you muted? I literally said you're one of my players.
Room 2.
Anyone can join. This room's not locked. You joined.
Yeah.
I was like, that was the first thing I said to him. Oh, hey, Fred, you're more than welcome to join. You're one of my players. Are you there, bud? Someone joined. Who's this?
That's Fred.
That's Fred, yeah.
You know how I get sometimes.
God, why is everyone so loud? Here we go. What up, bud?
Yo!
Welcome. Guys, this is Fred. Fred, this is Guys. I got Tough Nuts here. Tough Nuts is my cousin, good friend of mine. We're currently going through Baldur's Gate 3 Let's Play. What else are we doing? Oh, and he's joining us. Spoiler, not spoiler, because Pickles already spoiled it during Under the Table. Tough Nuts is going to be the guest star in King's Crossing Chapter 1 Part 2. So it might be a long-standing character. It might be a short-standing character.
He is short. Yes.
It's a gnome joke. We'll find out, but he's gonna guest star.
We'll see how much he can put up with Travis.
No, he's not joining Travis King. He said Travis is a dick. I don't want to join that game.
Oh, okay.
That's he's so confused. That's the Strange Ten of Golden Ridge campaign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I play Travis King, who is a very chaotic character. I didn't even intend for him to be that way. It just kind of happened, and I was like, well, all right.
What class is he?
So he's a bounty hunter. Is what he is.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a modern day bounty hunter, so he's a bail bonds recovery agent. That's technically what it is.
Does that game even have classes?
Dude, it's been so long since we played. It does have something because we leveled up. I remember that. But
leveling up just gives you points. I don't think you got like a class like in Zweihander or 5e.
I don't even remember. We need Pickles.
We'll figure it out.
It's been so long since we played. It's been what, 2 months, 3 months or something?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Fred plays in both the Strange Town of Golden Ridge, a Savage Worlds campaign, so where you have Dungeons and Dragons. This is Savage Worlds, a different system, or what do you call it? Tough Nuts?
I keep calling. What do I keep saying?
I can't remember what you call it. Reference? No.
I call it module.
Module? No, system.
Module is like an actual like adventure that's built for that.
I think I've been calling it format.
Format. That's what you've been calling it. Yeah.
That works.
Both works. I know what you mean. So Fred is actually, I've done this for the other guys. Let's talk about you. So, what is your history, your background with RPGs, TTRPGs, MMOs, anything? Where did you come from? What got you into it?
This will be game number 4 I've played. Granted,
That's
the
including
first-
Savage and King's Crossing.
Yes.
So you're somewhat new to it as well.
Fairly new. I had a couple of games that barely got off their feet before schedule conflicts killed them.
Oh man, that's a huge thing. That is the murder of so many games.
The first one was a Star Wars Old Republic, like right
Classic.
before the Clone Wars era. Old Republic. There was another one. I'm trying to remember what it was, but there was another one that we tried to get started that it never got past the planning phase. And then
Because I remember your character for King's Crossing, Torvekik the Dwarf, is a character that you had already had a concept for from a previous game, if I remember right.
that was another game that got planned, and then I've been informed that the guy that was gonna do the campaign, his world didn't last as long as he thought it would. There wasn't going to be as many adventures in his world as he thought was going to be able to do. So he built his world around one bad thing that happened, and then when a different group took it, got rid of the bad thing, there was nothing really else for any other adventure party to do.
No, so it was New World when they all got to max level and there was nothing else to do.
Yeah. And then so he the way it got read out and the way he did it, there wasn't enough room for another adventure party to come in and do something else because that adventure party still exists and they just kill it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
And
So it's a
then-
world where there was multiple adventuring parties going through the world at the same time. That is something I've wanted to run. Which if we get the amount of players, if we get the amount of players that I'm hoping for, right now, Fred, Mr. Pickles, Tough Nuts, possibly. Do you want to go by Adam on here? I don't. He called you Adam.
Adam's
so
fine.
okay. Adam, Shifty, that's 5 players right there. If we keep getting players, like I'm gonna split your guys' party up, and I would just run 2 games where you'd have 2 different parties going. Or so that is something I understand. I'm all for, but I see your point. If one party solves the problem, then the other party, what do?
Yeah. There's a campaign that I'm in right now, a 5e campaign, that the DM built a world, and then as time goes on, he'll throw different adventure parties through it. Like, right now, the campaign we're running, we're trying to keep a 3-headed dragon from waking up and destroying the world, while the adventure party before us still exists and they're still around. They're just all retired and doing other things.
Mm.
I think one of them's the mayor, but he's crippled, so he can't use his legs, so he's running around in a wheelchair. Another one's the captain of a city guard.
He's not running around in a wheelchair.
Yeah. sometimes. So, like, he's got his world built where a party will go through, and then a couple years later, something else will pop up, and these guys are retired, and they don't want anything to do with it, so the next party has to take care of it.
Oh, well, I listened to a podcast, actually. We were talking about listening to D&D podcasts. There's one out there called Not Another D&D Podcast. You familiar with it, Adam?
I am not.
Oh, it's pretty good. So Not Another D&D Podcast, they've run a couple different campaigns now on their podcast at this point, but their first one was, the story was basically the adventure's over, the campaign's over. The guys who completed the campaign are like legendary heroes, but they've kind of moved on. And now in the wake, the vacuum of power after, like, they came through and did all the quests, slayed the dragon, other stuff is rising up to fill those gaps. And so now these nobodies are like, oh, I guess we'll deal with it since these heroes just left.
They left a little bit early, guys.
Yeah, like they did everything and then left, but then they didn't fix the actual problem. Like they came in and slayed the dragon, but then
They
like,
put a band-aid on it.
yeah, then the underlings rose up and were like, okay, I guess we're the boss now, you know. And then the heroes are like they showed up to town. And it's like, yeah, they killed the dragon, but the dragon actually did a lot of stuff for our town, so now our town is suffering. And they're like, oh, great.
They kind of killed the thing that was helping the town, even if he was evil.
Exactly.
And now,
Yeah. So it was a cool idea for like, it was a cool concept, something I hadn't seen before. It's like you're the party following the main party, which is actually
you're the cleanup crew.
there was a Lord of the Rings game. I think it was called The Third Age.
It's a MMO, and
No.
This
This
there's
wasn't an MMO. This is an old
There's a
PlayStation 2 game.
This is a PC game. You can still get it on Steam, but it's like an MMO, and you are following behind the main quest for the Lord of the Rings,
It might be based off the same thing.
cleaning up their mess.
Yeah,
basically.
it was actually one of my
You're thinking
favorite.
Lord of the Rings Online.
Yes, Lord of the Rings Online.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you were talking about that earlier. This is an older. I think it was called The Third Age. It's an older PS2 game, but basically you're like you go to the Mines of Moria and you see like the dead troll. I think it was a troll that went in there and attacked him. You see like the bat, like they already left. You're following behind them, and it was actually one of my favorite Lord of the Rings games. It was a ton of fun, and so I kind of like that concept idea, like. The actual heroes, the big badasses, the superheroes are going through, and then the wake that is left in their, path. You're having to pick up all the pieces, and like, oh god,
You're just
picking
following
up.
behind. Like, why is there so many bodies?
Yeah,
That's a cool idea. I like that.
That's interesting.
yeah, different concept. That's the other thing is that with having been in the D&D RPG scene for 15 years now, you got to find different stories and different hooks and different ways to present stuff, because it's just like you can't always be like, okay, you're in a tavern, you all meet, the bartender gives you a quest. That gets old after like the 20th time.
Yeah, that's kind of why I
Because
like
all my
Lord of the
players are
Rings
new.
Online. Was you were following behind everybody and cleaning up their mess, and it gave you a little bit more to the story about what's happening around the quest for the Destroy the Ring.
It's a tough concept to sell because players want to be the heroes. That's
Right.
a lot of the reason why you play. So if you're like following the heroes, it's a tough concept to sell. I think it's a great concept. It's a great story, but it's one of those ones I think you got to do it right, and you got to have the right players for it.
Like what you were talking about with the guys that had the the heroes left without cleaning up the mess, and these other guys got to come in like, oh shit.
Yeah, and it's a very comedic campaign. It's not a serious campaign. So
Of course.
yeah, it would have to be, because I mean, if you're the real heroes, you got to be like you're fighting dragons and you're dealing with liches and all this stuff. Whereas if you're the B team, the cleanup crew,
Yeah.
you're kind of the goobers who are, you're not the main heroes. So you can have that leeway to kind of joke around and be a bit more silly with it.
Here's an interesting concept. So one of my buddies is trying to start a game, but scheduling conflicts once again are kind of slowing us down. But it's a Harry Potter TTRPG.
Ooh.
So like
I haven't seen one of
go-
those ever done well.
well, we're gonna figure out if it will go well. If it ever starts. Because we're having the scheduling issues once again.
Yeah.
Mostly the guy that's supposed to DM it is having trouble because he's got so much work.
That's not a good start. If the one
No,
guy
it's
you
not.
need at the game isn't able to
Yeah.
get the game.
So the character sheet is interesting because you don't have HP at all. It's all status effects. Like, you can't cast this spell because your arm's broke or something like that. Kind of like in Zweihander.
I was gonna say Zweihander does a lot of that, where you don't actually have like HP like you would in D&D. It's in Zweihander. It's, I don't know the best way to explain it. Tiers of health bar. The best way I would explain it is like on a video game where you have your health bar and like there's a green health bar, a yellow health bar, an orange health bar, and a red health bar. That's how Zweihander is. Weird.
Healthy.
Have you
or
been
injured
watching
or-
our?
Yeah.
Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's like, yeah, it's healthy. light injury, medium injury, grievous injuries, dead.
You went from grievously injured to dead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say.
I think Pickles is the only one who got close. I think he got to grievous at one point.
Yeah,
Series
and
or something.
there's no healer in town that we know of, so we're probably gonna have to leave.
There, you guys. Adam, if you don't, I run a game called King's Crossing. It's a classic fantasy game. Fred is one of my players in it. We just wrapped up part 1. That's the game that Tough Nuts is going to be guest starring in. And if you're ever interested, you can let me know if you ever want to play online. We can have you guest star as well. But basically, this is it's called the Grim and Perilous system. So you know how D&D is a system, blah blah blah. Zweihander is its own system, and it's literally labeled the Grim and Perilous system. It is deadly. It is dangerous. It's one of those games where you should show up with 3 characters.
I only had 1.
Yeah, so, yeah. Fred showed up with 1. He let's just say
I am very confident.
Throughout the adventure, I heard it from both of them at different points, going, "We should just go home. I want to turn around and go home.
This is no longer worth it. We just need to go home."
Not like let's go back to town. It was like, no, I'm going home.
I'm going back to my mountain where there's plenty of ale and gold, and it is safe.
We're gonna take an ad break because we're at the hour mark and I forgot those exist. So on
There's no ad playing.
On stream, there's a no, don't slap my ass. I'm helping Wrath right now. Oh, it's Mr. Pickles.
Oh,
Wonder why he's not in here.
What is he helping with?
I think he was the one who told me that they went into an ad break.
Oh,
So we're just sitting here waiting until we're back from an ad break. I don't know.
I don't have any ads.
Should be running ads. Yeah, I'm at the. It should be running ads about the hour mark.
I have the stream pulled up and there's no ads.
If you're subscribed, there wouldn't be, I don't think.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, if you're
This is
subscribed,
true.
you don't get ads. That's right.
Okay, never mind. Don't listen to me.
Yeah, get good, Pickles.
Adam,
Everyone knows.
you should share your characters with these guys for my campaign.
Sure.
Do it when we're back.
We'll do.
Yeah, we'll come back with that.
Kinda
Hopefully
quiet
somebody
there,
tells
Tough
us.
Nuts.
I know I boosted them all the way up.
Sorry, hello?
That's better. I can actually hear you now.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully someone
Sorry,
tells
I was
me when
eating.
we're back.
Earlier.
So, have you watched any of our campaign, Adam?
No, I have not. Yeah. I apologize.
No problem. you wanna
To
see
be
some-
fair, no one has watched any of I've been doing kind of D&D stuff and TTRPG stuff on my stream for years. It's never really been big. No one's ever really watched it. But I will admit, King's Crossing, I've had multiple people watching this and going back and watching it and being like, this is, I want to watch. And even, Tough Nuts is in there like, oh, what happened? What, da-da-da-da-da. And
If you want to see some hilarious stuff, the Strange Town of Golden Ridge is fun too.
Strange Town of Golden Ridge. That's so it's a campaign hosted by Mr. Pickles. Are we back, Pickles? Sure wish I was watching the stream instead of hearing about Nivea Men.
What's a Nivea Man?
I have no idea. Almost like I came to this stream for something other than Nivea Men. We need to come back from ad break because we got stuff we want to talk about. Got a couple of good topics. So we're gonna need to talk about Strange Town of Golden Ridge. We need to talk about Tough Nuts needs to talk about his game, and Adam needs to tell us about his characters.
Yeah.
Don't one of you guys remember that for when we come back from ad break, whenever that is.
What's your monetization status right now? Because I can censor some of my rogue's backstory.
Monetization. Oh wait, because of D&D's thing, or what do you mean?
My rogue has some graphic stuff in his backstory. How much?
Oh. Have you ever met me, bro?
Okay, so
This is a family-friendly stream, man. I don't cuss or look at boobs or nothing.
dude, I play a dwarf. What do you think happens?
Yeah. Ad break is over.
Dresses and drinks like a sailor, man.
All right, welcome back from the ad break. I apologize for any of you that had to suffer through that. We did find out that if you are subscribed to the channel, you don't get ads. Fun fact. But there's your bonus to subscribe to the channel. Also, subscriber movie nights are coming back, where once a week we're gonna sit down and host a movie night on Discord. So,
I think it's hilarious that Pickles is a VIP and he still gets ads.
yeah, I know. I tried. I gave him the best status I could, but Pickles, why aren't you joining us in the Discord?
Pickles, why aren't you paying Wrath? Come on.
He doesn't need to pay me. He's been subscribed before forever.
I know, it's funny.
Join
Just
us in the
making a
Discord though. I don't know if
Yeah,
I was
come on.
invited or not. Literally, I got scared. You were one of the people I originally brought this idea to. I even DM'd you personally and was like, "Hey, I'm doing this. You're invited."
Hey, don't worry, Pickle. I had the same reaction. I didn't know if I was allowed to come and join in midway.
Even after I said, "Hey, Fred, you should come and join us," he went,
Hey.
"Am I allowed to join?"
Whenever I bring up Twitch, it's muted. All right, I didn't hear you.
Am I allowed to be here, or should I leave?
Yeah, you're already here. You're like, can I talk too? So if Pickles is gonna join, I want him to be here when we talk about the Strange Night Golden Rage. So let's shift topics down to Tough Nuts and Adam. Before Adam talks about his characters, let's learn about what he's making characters for. Tough Nuts is new to the RPG scene as far as TTRPGs go, tabletop RPGs. He basically dabbled in 2 different games and was like, "Fuck this, I'm making my own." And so now he's gonna be a DM. He's gonna be a first-time DM. So huge props to you, man. Congrats. And
Yeah.
How's it been? What's your experience? What do you think so far?
So it's been good. I'm excited for it, and yeah, it's gonna be a good group because the people we're doing it with are like core friends. We do stuff together like all the time. We've just never done this before. So, like we were talking about earlier, like it's nice when you've got that like good group chemistry going into something like this, and we already for sure have that. It's just a matter of learning the game. And did you just blow out a? Sorry.
Sorry,
I
Anyways,
was lighting a candle. Don't worry.
my,
Making weapons over
ADD
there.
or whatever. I just saw like flame.
Yes,
Don't
fireball.
worry, I'm just sniffing.
Fireball.
Anyways, but yeah, I decided to like try and make life easy for myself as much as possible. So I'm starting with a campaign that's already written. It's for my first one. Eventually, I'd imagine I'll try to homebrew, but
I think
I
that's
just
a good
want to learn
idea.
the game,
Yeah.
and I want to introduce people to the game. And so I chose a campaign that's called The Lost Mines of Phandelver. It's a 5e campaign that comes with like the starter set of the game, so it's really, a lot of people know about it already, and it's pretty simple campaign that takes the characters from level 1 to 5, and then at that point we can decide what we want to do, like continue that or figure out something else. Just see if people like it. But
I think level 1 to 5 is a great spot for people to learn about their first character and then decide, okay, is this a character I want to continue with, or now that I kind of have an idea of how this works and how to play, I want to play this type of character or something, I think 1 to 5 is the perfect amount of time to like get through the tutorial phase kind of thing.
yeah, and they'll get a chance to see like other people playing characters too. There's going to be 5 players in this campaign, and then I'm DMing it, so
That's a lot. That is a big group.
yeah.
I think the biggest challenge for you straight out the gate is going to be spotlight distribution. Making sure that everyone has a chance to have a voice, have a say, make sure everyone, because I don't play in groups that big, but I know someone who does, who just joined, and I watched one of the recent games, and I think he said 3 words the entire session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Welcome in, Miss Pickles.
Oh, hi, guys.
Oh, hey there.
Hey, Pickles.
Howdy.
I am going to let you introduce yourself. We're going to talk about you and your game in just a minute, but I want them to do their thing real quick. We're talking about first, I don't know how much you caught, but first time DM stepping up to the plate. Tough Nuts He's going to be running a game, and one of his players, Adam, has joined us. So we're learning a little bit about what kind of got him into it and why he started and what he's experienced so far. You haven't run a session yet, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
So all the prep work, kind of what your thoughts are so far, and then we want to hear from Adam, who's prepping as a first-time player.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have to be careful because I don't want to spoil fun things for Adam here.
But you get so excited, and you're like, but I want to talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot to the story that I'm not going to talk about here, but the things that he does know that I think he knows is basic premise is we're in this area that like used to be pretty well established. Something happened that Adam doesn't know about, and this place was kind of abandoned for a long time, and now it's being resettled. And so Adam knows that. There's a character that's fairly important to the story that I connected one of Adam's characters to. But I think the best thing, I just can't get into the story here with Adam here. So
no, you're fine. You don't need to give spoilers away. Man, bringing in NPCs is such, I mean, in my experience, is such a hit or miss. And sometimes it can be, in the case of Fred and Pickles, it can be a miss, then hit, then miss, then hit, and you never know what one you're going to get. All with the same character. I hate him. What a hero. Fuck him.
Is this the child?
Yeah, the child, everyone, any character I bring in, I'm like, you never know how they're going to react. Because I've had some characters where I bring them in and I'm like, this character's here to help, like support, he wants to, and they're like, I kill him. I'm like, and then there's other characters who are like, oh, this guy's the bully of the town, and they're like, let's recruit him. And I'm like, what? That's a bad guy. So that's a big thing with NPCs is you never know. I mean, hopefully you've got a good group and they're gonna like flow with the story, but sometimes players have a way of just writing their own story, and you're like, what are you doing? Okay.
The thing I'm trying to do to tackle that, and without spoilers, like let's say there is an important character.
God, Adam, would you just leave? Fuck.
No.
Sorry.
No. It's good. So I'm not going to tell Adam who this character is, but there's a character that I could foresee at some point potentially being, possible to die. And this is an NPC that's important to drive the story. I'm coming up with ways to drive the story either if he lives and can communicate with the party, or if he dies, alternatives to continue to drive those important parts.
I think that's a huge role as the DM is you always got to have workarounds because it's not a railroad with D&D. I mean, some people will make it a railroad, but I don't like those games. It's not a railroad. So as much as your story goes from here to here, they could go like this to get there. And you got to have kind of like
That
ways to
fair.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be prepared for that. And the best thing I can do is just know the story inside out, like so well that it's just I don't have to think about that aspect of it.
I think that's a big thing with homebrew is you wrote the stories, so it's a lot easier to be like, I know what's happening because it's mine. Whereas with a module, but the other thing is with homebrew, you don't have a resource to go back to if you forget.
Right. So
there was a point in the last game where I was like, Hunt Captain Kyler is known for what? And I was like, fuck, a raccoon hat. Nope. What is it, Pickles?
It's a raccoon hat.
No, it's a beaver hat. Come on, bro.
Damn it.
You're the one who corrected me and was like, it's a beaver hat.
Well, see, my memory's not perfect. That's why I use Evernote.
And he had notes to go back and reference.
OneNote.
Okay, well, we are mortal enemies, but
I use paper.
Oh,
yeah, I use paper too.
Per person.
Yeah.
No, that's good for memory though. If you write something down physically, you're more likely to remember it than if you just speed type it like a maniac.
Yeah, I use paper. Except,
I-
fun fact, we played seven sessions of I didn't use my other hand. 7 sessions of King's Crossing, and I forgot my notepad every single time. Because it's the same notepad I take to the gym, so it's in my gym bag.
Mm.
And then I come to sit down for the session, I don't want to get up and leave, so I'm like, alright, here we go.
Pickle could have wrote down whatever he wanted to, and Wrath would have had no choice.
I'm like, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, you wore a
I like
hippo.
history.
You wore a fat person suit the whole time? I didn't. You wore a fat person.
It's in the nose, man.
Yeah. Okay, so your experience so far coming to TTRPGs has been what?
It's been good. I think the biggest challenge I've had. Oh, sorry, someone's at my door.
You're good.
I'll be right back.
That was great talk, Adam.
Thanks for hanging around. You know.
Adam, you're coming in as longtime listener of D&D podcasts and stuff like that. We talked about that. Pickles has told me he doesn't understand why anyone would ever watch or listen to him, because playing is more fun. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Pickles. Playing is more fun than actually sitting there watching other people play.
Or running the game. Like,
yeah.
I can't imagine not wanting to run the game or play in the game. It's just kind of like, why?
So I'll give you my why. Was that when I first got interested in like tabletop RPGs, I was over in St. Louis, Missouri for college, and
I'm
I
right near
was
there.
sitting alone for close to 8 hours a day, and all my friends were back on the West Coast, so that
God,
kind of
that's
filled
tough.
that itch. It was I was unable to really get close to friends and be able to plan out anything and to get things together. So I realize that now, Wrath. I'm sorry.
Yeah, man, this
from
sounds
a
so
distance.
familiar. I moved to across the country, and now it's so hard to make friends. And I'm sitting here
I
with
know,
all,
right?
all my friends are over on the West Coast. I know he's making this game, and he's like, "Man, it'd be really nice if you could just come play." And I was like, "Sure, buy me a plane ticket every single week, and I'll fly across the
There you go.
country."
Oh, that would have been a
apologize.
killer campaign.
I'm back. I'm now dog sitting.
Oh, fun.
Okay. Changing status. I am now dog sitting.
Yeah. I failed my role.
So you failed your role. He's already getting into D&D jokes.
Oh, damn it.
So you are coming in first time, getting to play
First time playing.
finally.
Mhm.
What has that been like for you? You get to meet you. He told you to make a character, and you couldn't even do that. You made 3.
Yes.
You really made
Enthusiasm level.
So let's hear it.
So
He made 2.5.
I made the first one, and then I had so much fun doing it. I did it 2 more times.
You must really love paperwork.
Yes, paperwork. No, but I love creating like the backstories behind them and being able to like tell a story. That was always my favorite part of, as I mentioned earlier, that's my favorite part of the tabletop RPG scene is the fact that you get to make your own story and it's not really set in stone where it's going to go. So that's why I really enjoyed it. So my first character I kind of built with the idea in mind of I heard what all the other first time players of this friend group were going to do, and based on my knowledge of listening to prior podcasts and such, I kind of came up with one that might be necessary for our survival during the campaign.
Help balance the party. I do the same thing. I'm like, okay, what is everybody
Yeah.
else playing, and then I can know what is needed.
Yeah, exactly. And it turned out once I had it all built up and I had given him a backstory, it turned quickly into one of my favorite. Like, I think that this character could have a lot of growth and a lot of interesting tie-ins along the way during the story. So
I'd say that's
why
probably one of my favorite parts too. I agree. It's uncovering who the characters are and kind of seeing that growth. Even in the podcasts I've listened to, the shows I've watched, the ones that I've connected to most and some of my favorite points have been the ones where the characters have grown so much that they created their own world. To where like this one I was watching, they like went and visited the hometown where one of the players was from. Excuse me, where one of the characters was from, and it was like a huge like that was a whole adventure because it was a huge part of what they were doing, and it developed so much character growth, and it was awesome. It was a great time. So I agree. I think that's one of my favorite parts too.
Yeah. So I see Tough Nuts just pulled it up. So this is my character that I'm playing. His name is Andal Duskblade. He's the he's a Ghostwise halfling cleric of the Twilight Order. He's 3 feet 2 inches tall, middle aged. His body shows signs of a hard life devoted to the path of Helm, god of protection. Yet within his pale green eyes lies a flame burning with unquenchable vigor to leap in and protect those that he's charged to defend. Ghostwise halflings fled their homeland of Learwood following the Hin Ghost War. So during that war, from what I read on the wiki fandoms and stuff like that, it was initially started by a Ghostwise cleric named Despa and his barbarous worship of Malar. So what I kind of tried to tie in with some of that lore that's already been put in place is that as the Ghostwise halflings were fleeing after they were driven out during that war, you'd imagine that you'd need somebody to protect the clan as they were trying to make their way to their new home. So the clerics stood as a bastion against the terrors of the night, which is the whole idea behind the Twilight Order of clerics. So Andal is a descendant of that order of vanguards, and as penance for the treachery of Despa, he's taken an oath of silence, which I talked with David Toughnuts about this a little earlier, and we kind of have an idea of how we're going to tie that in going forward, because part of the lore is that the Ghostwise took an oath of silence until the atrocities were atoned for. And so we're going to find some way to tie that into the story, which is what we talked about last night.
How the
So,
hell
yeah,
do you
this
have an
is-
AC of 18? That is a high AC for a level 1 character.
Yes,
You're not
it
even a
is.
fighter.
Nope.
That is
He's,
insane.
He's got heavy armor,
Oh yeah, that'll help.
and
Yep.
so he has disadvantage on stealth.
Right, yep. Give you
Yep.
disadvantage on stealth, but who needs that? You got 0 in dex anyway. 0 modifier in dex.
Yep. So yeah.
Ain't worried
So
about stealth.
yeah. So he's a descendant of those vanguards, and as such has been sent on a pilgrimage from his homeland of Chandlewood to spread the Helm's protection as a continued atonement for Despa's treachery. He's so the tie-in that we discussed last night is that he's now been sent forth by the High Cleric Barton Whisper Earth to bring protection of Helm to the city of Phandalin during its time of resettlement. High Cleric gave him a local cleric, Garael, sister of the Timorian faith. While luck may prevail for the followers of Temora, those of Helm's following understand that you must make your own luck. So therefore, the cleric sent Andal to go and help with that effort. With this charge, he made his way west to Baldur's Gate to catch the ship, a ship up to Neverwinter. Along his boat ride, he befriended Sildar Hallwinter, who was on business in Baldur's Gate for the Lord's Alliance. And it's been about a week since Andal arrived in Neverwinter. So that's kind of the background that I created for my character. I went with a wisdom build, as you can see, and also heavy armor, kind of taking the role of kind of a tank frontliner for our party, because we have a lot of people who can do damage, but not a whole lot of people that can take it. So
Hey, Pickles, that beats the hell out of. Describe your character, pass.
Yeah.
Why couldn't
One
we
thing-
get players like this? What the hell?
Like I said, Adam's like the model player. Wait till you hear his other character, because like this one's good. His other one is just dirty. How good it is. He needs to write a book.
Well, I mean, that was half our show. I don't, I don't know if we have time for another character.
Okay, he's making me want to show off the wood elf I have. After
But,
you get done with yours, I'll go find my wood elf and I'll show him.
That's not even the actual character you're playing. You're playing
I
Torvekik.
don't
What the hell?
care. Well, I can't get to Torvekik because you have the thing closed.
Oh yeah.
One of the challenges with this character that I foresee as the DM, and Adam and I talked about this a little bit, but his vow of silence, I want him to be able to talk and interact with the party, because I think it's boring gameplay to...
Hey! Somebody just raided us.
I know, but you just interrupted Tough Nuts.
Sorry.
Oh, no. That's good. Also, sorry if the dogs are loud.
Nope, Karen.
No.
Go ahead. Finish your
Okay.
sentence.
But yeah, because of this vow of silence, I want to make sure Adam is still able to interact with the rest of the party. I think it's lame if you just can't talk ever. So balancing that, and his character can talk through telepathy with a thing called silent speech. But he's only able to talk to one character at a time with that.
Mhm.
And so what I was thinking about doing as the DM is allowing him to use his telepathy to talk to the whole group while using concentration, kind of like as a spell. But if you're in combat, then that breaks. But I
Yeah,
don't
so
know.
it takes like concentration to maintain it, kind of thing. And I'd say, I mean, the way you balance that is if you're going off concentration, then you get into combat. If he gets hit, he has to roll to see if he maintains concentration or not.
Right.
Yeah. I have a thought on that, but real quick, huge shout out to Jack Strider. Thank you for the raid. Welcome in all the homies. This is a random first time. I swear it's my first time. RPG talk show, where me and homies who are in the RPG community get together. We've discussed MMOs, we've discussed TTRPGs, we've discussed podcasts, all kinds of stuff coming in here. We've got the equivalent of 3 DMs, multiple players, multiple campaigns going on. As a fellow DM, I appreciate. Fuck yeah, man! We might have to get you in here. Making sure I'm caught up on chat. Thank you guys for coming in. Appreciate it. Your thoughts on a mute character? I actually like that concept, and I did it one time. I played a monk, and he was a mute. Do you remember this, Pickles?
No, not at all.
It was one of your games, and the party murdered me. My own
That's
party.
why I don't remember you.
I played a mute, and he had a vow of silence. He was a monk, but he was completely like devoted to the party. But he did his religious, like, you know, his out of I don't know if it's religious technically, but his order,
Spiritual?
spiritual. Through, you know, like meditation was a huge part of his character and all this stuff, right? My own party murdered me. And I was like,
Okay, but disclaimer
Something
there.
to look forward to, Adam.
yeah, good luck.
Disclaimer, that party hated each other. It was all of my friends who liked me, but somehow despised each other. So
Nice.
that's where you get, okay, we're going to start off this game because we forgot our abilities last time because we're playing a system where you have just 100 freaking abilities. Let's go around the table, say what we can do, what our character's name is, so that we all know each other's characters' names. And everybody just kind of buckled and went pass.
Pass. Because none of us liked each other, so no one wanted to talk to each other. We're like, yeah, I'm good.
So play with people who want to play with each other. Don't force people.
And that's where I think a huge part of this is Tough Nuts is his first time DM. Hey, Fred, nice ass. Tough Nuts is a first time DM coming in. Good luck. Except somehow this motherfucker gets so lucky that he comes in and he has 5 friends who are just like never played, no interest in it. Are like, yeah, absolutely, we all love each other and want to play. I'm like, what the hell? You know what Pickles and I did? We played with the neighbor who would ground himself because he farted too loud. That was our options. That's who we had to play with.
He'd fail a roll, fart himself, and then say, "Uh-oh, I'm grounded," and run off.
This is a true story.
Hell.
Not on one occasion. This happened multiple times.
Okay. So I'm playing a 5e game with a bunch of other guys, and I'm playing a wood elf, and he has the speak to animal spell. And one of my we came.
I feel
across
like that
a,
spell is so rarely used, even in video games or like.
I'm about to tell you why it's so rarely used.
Oh God.
So we come across a hot spring that's got ferrets swimming in it, and apparently the waters are magical and healing. So my buddy wants me to translate a conversation between him and the ferrets. This guy starts a ferret cult.
Ferret cult.
The ferrets create a cult out of the woodland creatures around them based on the hot spring for them to get more gold, and will do whatever the friend tells them to do. So friend tells them to go kidnap a noble from another city, another country, and they go and do it.
Well, it's like, isn't that like the concept, the Pied Piper who would like play his flute and like the rats would follow him and like do what he wanted or something? Isn't that?
Kind
remember
of,
that
but
right?
these guys are kind of they do it themselves, all right? They have a pile of gold next to their hot spring that is healing waters, and they go and kidnap people that they get told to kidnap.
I mean, I'm kind of down with it because, like I said, sometimes you got to come up with new concepts. You know, you fought the dragon, you fought the kobold, you've encountered a goblin. Ferret cult?
And so they call him the Prophet.
I like it. Prophet is actually a cool character name,
So,
especially for
So-
maybe a character who has a vow of silence, a monk.
the noble they told him to kidnap is actually part of another character's backstory that he's mad at or whatever. So now we've cut off that complete avenue of exploring that part of the backstory for a while because we had the ferret kidnapping.
No, I like it. Sometimes you got to come up with some new blood flowing. Jack Strider said, my campaign is up to session 32. I'm very lucky to have players that like each other. I feel like, unfortunately, that's so rare. And I say that because I've had games that have gone, a really long time. A famous one of mine is Stonehill. Went on for quite a while. That it was based on a city called Stonehill, which saw multiple revisions. At one point, half the city got burned down by one of my players. It saw a lot of history. It went on for a while. But I've also had repeated campaigns fail within the first 5 episodes. And it's like, come on. And a lot of this is scheduling conflicts being a huge part of that. And we talked about that being probably the number one killer of D&D RPG campaigns. So the fact that you're able to hit session 32 and still be going strong is great. We just hit session 7 of my game. We just wrapped up session 7, and I did recently learn the news that we got approval to be renewed for chapter 2 or part 2. So
The network is still carrying us.
yeah. So session 8 will be coming. Pickles, how many sessions? Do you know how many sessions we had in your Strange Town of Golden Ridge?
I wasn't counting.
I think it was like 5 or 6.
I feel like we got to at least 6.
I think it was 6.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so there you go. We'll be having session 7 Sunday.
Yeah, if you guys stick around, you get to see the strange town of Golden Ridge where weird shit happens.
That's right. That was the other thing we wanted to talk about. We talked about a little bit about you guys and what you got going on. Pickles is here. Pickles, why don't you tell us what's your backstory with RPGs? This could be MMORPGs, RPG video games, TTRPGs. What got you started on them? What's your experience been with them? I've heard all these stories because Pickles is the one who got me into D&D and TTRPGs 15 years ago. So we've talked a lot, but these guys don't know. So why don't tell us?
Well, I guess at age 15, I was at a friend's house and we were playing a D&D based video game, and he was like, hey, I have some books that could help us beat this game because we were stuck. And so he crawled under his bed and pulled out a bunch of 3rd edition D&D books. And then I was like, hey, could I borrow one of these? He's like, no, you can just have all of them. So that was my introduction to the game. Is I got all these books. I was just fascinated by fantasy accounting, and yeah, I then tried to find people, but I was an awkward, weird person who calls D&D fantasy accounting, and I struggled to get friends, but the people that I could persuade just hated each other. So a lot of my early years was struggling to get people to work together who did not want to work together. And
You see
that
why I'm
was,
so mad at Tough Nuts?
yeah. Well, I'm just faintly jelly,
Right?
rather than mad.
I've spent 10 years cultivating these relationships before D&D.
Yeah, I mean, I was 15 at the time, so it's like,
This is a plan 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
I guess that's really my problem. Is I've spent the last 10 years moving across the country about 10 times, so I haven't really.
You should have been planning for D&D.
I know I should have been planning for D&D. I should have known when I was 21. In 10 years from now, I'm gonna need a group for D&D. I'm gonna need to go start building that. How dare I? God damn it, Adam, where were you? I needed you. This Adam.
yeah, that's really throwing me off.
Yeah, sorry. That's Adam. Your
my
pickles
name as well. Every time I hear Adam, I'm like, oh, what? Adam's
Which-
an excellent role player, and I think, what?
A date.
Which sucks because you haven't gone by Adam for 15 years, and now you have a podcast, and now all of a sudden you're Adam again, and it threw me off.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I picked Mr. Pickles to show that I'm not competent to solve problems, so like, I think I've outgrown that name.
I don't know. Grunkle seems to be doing fairly well.
That's Grunkle. I'm a joke.
He cried
But-
a couple times.
Well, crying is part
of.
of role playing.
It's true.
Pickles or Grunkle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, so I got into D&D at an early age, struggled to get a good group going because everybody hated each other, and then, yeah, I got to online games, and I've played a lot of different systems, and that's because I've struggled for a long time to find a proper system for what I want to do. I want something simple, intuitive, that gives you plenty of opportunity to role play and use that system as a tool to, like, play your character. So I like systems that are more broad in scope, like they give you the power of fire magic rather than specific fire spells. I like systems that work with that better. And yeah, I've played D&D 3rd edition. I did 4th. I've done some 5th edition. Played a Spelljammer module. Done Warhammer. I tried to get into the sequel to Warhammer, but it was not great because it's mostly card based, and can't do that online very well unless, well, probably can now, but I've played Call of Cthulhu, many versions of that. I struggled to turn Call of Cthulhu into something I wanted, and eventually you have to admit, if you're throwing out elements of a system to a great degree and rewriting things, like, maybe you should just use a proper system.
Yeah.
World of Darkness, Traveler.
Once you copy the system enough, it's
Yeah.
like, are you really even playing that system anymore?
Don't Frankenstein it. And now I'm in Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds is the system that I found that really works for me. It's very simple. It's like Traveler, but with a lot more flavor. And that's basically me. I play on a Saturday game for like the past several years. I want to say at least 5 years now. I've been playing on Inwell's channel, playing Mithras.
That's
In
crazy
Space,
how long you
Destined.
stuck with it.
Yeah, well, it works for me.
Here I am saying, wow, session 32, that's a lot. You're like, yeah, 5 years.
Well, it's a lot of different games, so it's not necessarily the same game, but
True.
we played a lot with our fantasy one. I guess to wrap up my backstory, I like modern stuff a lot more than fantasy. I've recently grown to like superhero stuff, so I really want to run a superheroes game at some point. And Savage Worlds can play like any genre, so that's the thing I love about it, is I could make a fantasy game with Savage Worlds and be like, let's roll some swords.
I'm curious. Let's roll some swords. I'm curious. You've had. I don't mean to put you on the spot here or call you out, but you've had difficulty getting players for Strange Town Golden Ridge. Even though I've tried hyping it up, Fred hypes it up, we both love it, but we're only 2 players who will play it. And I think it's because it's modern day, right? You and I have talked about this, and it's basically that's not people's choice when they want to play D&D. I wonder if And I'm perfectly fine continuing on with Strange Town Golden Ridge because we've made characters, we've created like a story arc between us, and we've got a good thing going. I'm curious what happens, like what are these creatures we found, like what is the part they play, why is this town got all these, like there's a lot of unanswered questions that I'm invested in. But I'm curious if we went over to your new passion of a superheroes game, if you would have an easier time finding players.
Well, I don't know. I do think that modern is something that like most people don't like. I've had a friend say, why would I want to role play something I could just go out and do? And it's like, yeah, modern, you could just go out and be a gangbanger, ha ha ha. But I mean, this is a risk-free environment to do nonsense like that. Is my point.
Yeah.
With that, but like it does still stand. It's when you're doing fantasy, you're going out and you can be something you literally could not be. You could put on like a gun in your hand and run out shooting people in real life. That's what a gangster does.
He puts on a gun,
but
in
you
his hand.
can't be a wood elf monk. None of us can, unless we do our fantasy accounting. So I think that's the main draw. Is most people don't want to play a human. Most people want to play something more
Live a fantasy.
interesting.
Yeah.
And Inwell's his fantasy game, it's only humans. You can only play as a human, and he's had the same problem. Is that doesn't draw as many people. There are people who want to play grim and perilous systems, but when it's just human, that's a roadblock.
Mm-hmm.
And not to bring down judgment, I'm just saying that's usually what I've seen.
Yeah, because even in King's Crossing, I have had 4 people make characters for it. Not one has wanted to be human.
I mean, yeah, I wanted to play an ogre. I've said before, an
like
ogre
dwarves.
hero is funny. Yeah, and dwarves are they're unique. I've had a friend tell me that like it's more fun to write a character with a different fantasy race because humans can just be anything. But you take an elf, there are themes and stereotypes that you can either go along with or fight against, and that makes it a more interesting narrative character.
That's where I'm torn on a lot of stuff because like I'm pulled in 2 directions. One being I want players to immerse themselves in the game, connect to the game, and like Adam, he looked up the lore of D&D. They're following the lore of D&D, and so he looked up that lore and tied his character into that lore, correct?
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
He's muted
Yeah,
right
he's
now.
muted,
If he's
but yeah. So it is correct. Just take my word for it. The other side of me is like I don't like the classic stereotype of elves are Rivendell, dwarves are Moria. I was like, I want something different. Like it's the same old song and dance. I want something different. So in King's Crossing, the elves or the dwarves have changed. They were classic dwarves, but they've changed recently. We haven't really gotten to explore all that yet, but you guys have heard some of the rumors, and it has a huge part to play in Fred's character. The elves we haven't got to explore at all, but I've made them different, so the classic stereotype doesn't technically apply. And part of me is like, I like that, but then it's also going to make it harder for people to connect with it. And it's like I'm running a homebrew campaign, so when I'm like, hey, you guys, like all that research and all that work Adam put into his character, you guys literally can't do that because you guys don't have all that resource to go to and build all these characters and all this stuff. And that's it sucks because I'm like, wow, look how great that was. And you guys are like, well, that's not fair because we don't even have the option to do that. I'm like, yeah, because I'm the asshole who changed everything. It's like, that's why I'm torn in like 2 directions, because it would be nice to have that, but it also means I have to build all that and then share it with you guys, and you guys would have to read all that and know it. So
it's a lot more work.
Yeah. So it's like the easy option would just be go play D&D 5e, use their lore, but that also means you get everything that comes with it, good or bad.
I mean,
and then if you start piecemealing, that's where what Pickles was talking about.
So I've been the second part to Adam's process that he's going through though is he also spent a lot of time talking to me and understanding, what my take on the world is going to be. So he was able to say like, you know, what time period is this going to be in the lore? And you know, we work together to connect his character to things that might happen in the campaign without me telling him what's going to happen. Um, and so, and actually, his other character that he was talking about earlier, it's really not connected. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but it's really not connected to lore almost at all. It's just a story.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah, I just
still a great character because it really develops, like, without any lore connection at all, like why his character is going to be the way it is. It's cool.
yeah, just to give a brief synopsis, the secondary character that I've built out and put a story behind that David's talking about right now is a Lightfoot halfling rogue. So yeah, I know edgelord, but the figure that we were going to go and like build it towards is a phantom rogue. So with that, I wanted to kind of incorporate some of the ideas of what that class was with talking to the dead and whispers of the dead sorts of themes, and then take that and tie that into my criminal background, being a rogue. So at when I first built this character, it kind of turns out as uh, he starts to have what at first would appear to be like uh,
Schizophrenia.
schizophrenia. Yeah. Long and short of it, schizophrenia, hearing voices and but not understanding what they're saying and all that, which would then be built into when he turns level 3 and becomes a phantom rogue, and being able to understand what those whispers are saying a little bit more and tying that into the theme of what David's working with. Sorry, tough nuts. Sorry.
All right, well, let's go get the anti-dox medicine. And
Yes. um, but anyway, but talking with tough nuts, the other concern there was like, what happens if I end up having to roll to this character, like when I'm at 3rd level? So that's the other thing I'm starting to work on now, is seeing like, all right, so if I come in at a later point in the game, what is that going to look like as far as, did he get a teacher in that time period to fill the gap from where I would try to be building that that idea from level 1 to level 3, uh, whereas if I jumped in at level 3, would I have to incorporate maybe like a mentor or something that taught me another phantom rogue mentor sort of thing that taught me like what those whispers meant, and teaching me that maybe the trying to come to an understanding of the transgressions that I committed in the past were not tied to anything that was wrong with my person, but rather something that the voices of the dead were trying to warn me about. But
Damn. Well, that got deep.
He wrote an entire story, which I'll spare you because it's long.
yeah,
But
it is quite long.
it's dark, and it's kind of the founding of his character, of like how he started hearing these voices, and like what event caused that for his life. It's a cool story.
I remember back in the day, I used to do that, and Pickles might be able to back me up here and might tell me to fuck off, but I think that is such new player energy,
Yes.
because I think you get to I mean, I'm talking in a jaded sense here, but you get to a point where you've had so many characters not work out, so many campaigns fall through, scheduling conflicts, where you've like, I've made 50 characters. Like, here's my character, here's a quick backstory. We'll see if this game lasts longer than 5 sessions. And I feel like that's a terrible way to look at it. I want that energy. I want to come into like, it makes me want to have a DM workshop where I just work on Travis King, my character for the Strange Town of Golden Ridge, so that way come Sunday when we get back into it, or if we go over, if we're going to play a superhero game, I'm going to spend time working on a character and making this character good. Is the game going to last longer than 5 episodes? Doesn't matter. I want to make a character I could play for 3 years and be proud of.
You you get out of it what you put into it, and I think like if every player does that for a campaign, the story is going to be so much more rich. I don't know.
Yeah,
Pickles
yeah,
to trees.
that's DM poison. Like when nobody cares, nobody puts in any effort, people barely show up. It's like why am I even bothering?
You can tell Pickles and I have some jaded experience.
I would like to add though to your jaded experience, done, and a lot of our experiences have been with homebrew games, and that's something where you don't have a lot to work with as it is, so you probably make a big character and then the GM's like, oh, well, or DM's like, that doesn't really fit with what I've written here, so no, but let's work on something. And also just when you are playing a more standardized setting and system, it's easier to like make a character and then really expand on it, I think, compared to I don't know the system, why are we playing this weird hipster system, Pickles? Here's my character.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And another part of this is, yeah, we Pickles and I have had plenty of botched experiences. So you know we've kind of got that negative side. You guys are coming in fresh eyed, you know, ready to go. You don't have all the negative sides to.
No, you're going to have fun. Don't listen to us.
Don't listen to us old geezers. But my thing is, I've been on the DM side where it's fallen through. You know, stuff has just not worked out, or the games I've made just don't work. And another big part of this, even from the player side or DM side, is when the players just don't work together. And we talked about this earlier. I've made characters where I was really proud of it, and I made a monk who I was really proud of, and my own party killed him. And it's like, why did I bother? I could have come to that guy who just murdered me came to the table with a character sheet that had 3 letters on it. Like, you know, and I put all this work and made this whole backstory, and I'm dead.
We talked about that at the beginning of oh good lord, my brain's not working.
King's Crossing.
Yes. We talked about that at the beginning of King's Crossing to make sure Grunkle and Torvekik were going to work together and not try and murder each other.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and then you guys.
Yeah, well, hey, do you remember Grunkle, Arath, from the last campaign Grunkle was in?
A perfect example, yeah. And the reason why you wanted to give him another shot because he didn't even get a chance.
It's a stupid character, and like I don't think of a lot of characters that I want to play because I'm not a very creative person. It's just I wanted to play an ogre hero. I thought that'd be funny, a monster that's stereotyped for eating people and sheep and like. But I'm a good guy, so haha. And the first game I played with him was with a evil elven wizard lady and a thief that was royalty in the river shanty town or ocean shanty town that we were living in. So everybody was bad and I was the good boy, and so guess who got told they are the bad boy? Me.
Yeah,
Put in the corner and said, "You're the wrong one, Grunkle."
His own party tried to murder the knight captain in a city of like honorable knights where like they are the law, like they're the shit. And not only was it a knight like Lancelot, like honorable knights, you know, the lawful good, you know, characters. This was the knight captain. Some stuff went missing. He was just asking around, talking to people. He was talking to Grunkle.
Jewelry went missing because
stolen by the players.
A place that was burnt down, an entire like district
by the players
to cover up the stolen jewelry.
So yeah, they stole stuff, burnt it down. So then obviously the guard is like, stuff's happening. So they're investigating. Grunkle's out there. Grunkle's like, I'll talk to you. So they're like, all right. So he's talking to Grunkle, and then the other party's like, we try to kill the knight captain. I was like, this is not some normal guard, dude. Like, this is okay, you guys.
Oh no, he was coming to arrest them, and they're like, we'll die rather than be arrested.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold up, guys. Maybe we shouldn't kill ourselves.
Yeah. So Grunkle was trying to like be the good guy and like talk him out, and they all got mad at Grunkle. They're like, how dare you not be on our side? And he goes, you guys are terrible people. Anyways, he made this whole character, and then the game ended because his party just got themselves murdered, and Grunkle got blamed for it.
But no, we were exiled. And they poisoned the town by throwing poison in the well. As we were
And
leaving.
then me as a DM, I put all this work into this town, and they try to murder the Knight Captain and then poison the town and left.
But that wasn't me. I did nothing wrong. I was just trying to be a team player.
And this is where I am jaded. I'm like, you bring a NPC into the game, you better be ready for them to just be like, fucking hate this kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the thing for my campaign that's unique is all the players are new, and so I think, especially at the start, I think people are going to be like, because they don't really know how the game works and they don't know what their characters can do.
More restricted.
They're just going to want to do, whatever I'm suggesting, and there's going to be some coaching involved. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Or they'll want to push boundaries.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna go one of two ways. They either are like, lead me and I'll follow, or it's gonna be like, how far can I go?
Can I kill the shopkeeper?
Yeah,
Is this
like,
an option?
Yeah.
this guy
I have a knife.
offering
Can I
us,
stab him?
he's offering
I
us
don't know.
gold to finish this quest. If we just kill him and steal all his stuff, we don't even have to do the quest.
But that's
Yeah.
where you set expectations with your players and let them know what kind of things are off the table.
Or you
which
put
is fair.
you put laws
Um,
and guards, and then they just try and kill them too.
Right. And
Well,
that's
you
fair.
make rules. You make rules with your group to guide the experience so it's not a terrible time. Like, I have the rules of no torture because I don't want you guys torturing people. It's going to be a bad time. And I'm also not going to torture you. And
I put
like,
rules. I said, hey, this is a town of knights of honorable. The story plot is that you guys are going to become honorable knights, and
well, yeah, my
That
words
went
were better.
well.
yeah, that did not go
Adam,
well.
I don't know what you think, but knowing this group of players, I think I don't think they'll be pushing boundaries at first. I think they're going to just try to figure out the game and just follow along.
If anything, I might be your biggest issue.
You will be, probably. Yeah.
Oh, gold! This guy has the gold.
I'm trying to think of my from King's Crossing. I'm just gonna go back. I don't know that I knock on wood. I don't have a problem. There's not really a problem with my party or any. There's no problem player who's like, I want to push boundaries or I want to, it's. I think the only issue I've had is that I scared you guys too much and you guys stopped interacting with plot hooks. that was the biggest issue that I found. Is
You
that
sent Godzilla after us.
you guys got scared and you stopped interacting. That one was to see if you guys wanted to try stealth or anything. You didn't. It was blind and it was just relying on smell. That's the lizard tongue that was sticking out, and you guys wouldn't stop talking or yelling, and so it kept finding you.
You had Alexios yell!
Yeah, that's why I was trying to like. Alexios doesn't notice it and starts talking, and I was expecting Grunkle to be like, "Shut up!" Nope, he was like, "Yeah, we need to go now," and the creature's like, "Hmm." You guys didn't roll stealth, nothing, and that was just it wasn't let's go fight this thing test. It was how are you gonna handle a big threat, not like a bunch of little threat. It was just a different experience. But
Well, I think part of that was also 3/4 of us didn't know it was there.
well, then Grunkle alerted you guys to it. But
And also, most of our party was heavily injured.
that's another issue, yeah.
And Grunkle is not a stealthy ogre berserker.
True.
And
You guys handled it. I'm just saying, like, that wasn't even the plot hook. Like, there was a healer you guys were supposed to meet along the adventure. There's a whole blood trail of blood roses you guys were supposed to. You guys got to not to give stuff away. You guys got to the spot where you knew there was blood spilled. It grows in silence, but you guys just kept talking, and you're like, "Yep," and we leave. I was like, "All right, no silent blood rose grew because you guys wouldn't let it be quiet." You see so there's like plot hooks. There was a trail that led somewhere, and you guys are like, yeah, we're not following that. You guys are supposed to find a bear, so you guys you're like, yeah, we're not doing that. And I don't think that's your guys'
you
fault.
know why.
Yeah, I don't
To
think it's
be
your
honest,
fault.
we were so wounded and fucked up that we couldn't do
You
any
guys
of
are
that.
proving my point. This is what I'm saying. I scared you guys too much to where you weren't
Oh, yeah,
interacting with my plot hooks, and I was like, dang it. Like,
But you can control player behavior like that by working with their resources. You can wear down resources when you want players to know your characters are dealing with something that they should be, heading back soon.
yeah,
Like,
and
each
that's
system has that automation in that you
You
should know, like,
you
when they're
saw
out of spells.
you saw the point where in that episode, I was sitting there like, hang on, I'm thinking about something. I'm trying to remember that where I was like, I'm trying to.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, there's one last encounter where you guys need to encounter, the bear draw the flux bear berries is the only thing you were missing, I believe. Flux bear berries?
And
and the silent blood rose. And I was trying to figure out how to give that to you guys, but you guys are like, we're leaving. We're not doing any of this. We're not finding a bear. We're not doing any of this.
Being
And
chased.
I was sitting here like, okay, how do I wrap that back around? And like, I was like, do I bring the character in? To, like,
really no way for you to do it.
yeah, that's where I was like, I think I fucked this up. You guys are just heading home. I'm just gonna. All right, you guys don't meet the healer. You don't get the rest of the ingredients. Maybe in part 2, because at this point I've scared you guys too much, and you're running. And I was like, all right, I just have to throw in the towel. That's where I was sitting here going, how do I hang on? I'm thinking this because I was trying to figure out a way I could like bring it back around, and I couldn't do it. That's why we ended early.
Yeah, there was just too much stuff trying to kill us at once, and we had too many wounded people.
Yeah. Well, like the big lizard thing was just a different threat. It was a big threat, one single big threat that had specific things it was looking for, but you guys weren't picking up on it, and I wasn't doing a good job of like, it was every time you guys kept being loud and getting loud that I was like, oh, the ripple happens, you guys hear it, and but it wasn't picking up, and it didn't it didn't go well. And I was sitting over here like, all right, we'll come back for part 2. So I think that was my fault. I put, plus the fights totally fucked me because you guys weren't even supposed to be that injured. So it would have helped if you guys weren't injured, because I think the biggest complaint during this journey was, we're hurt. We can't do this. We're hurt. We need to go home. We're hurt. And I was like, dang it.
The ogre berserker can't fight.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was like, meet the healer. And you guys are like, we're going home. And I was like, all right.
But you didn't say meet the healer. There's no indication that there was any potential payoff. So it's one of those things where it's like, we have to work with what information we have. You might know there's a healer, but we're looking at it as, okay, we can go down this path while we're heavily injured, and maybe there's more bandits. Maybe we don't even find what we're looking for. Maybe there's so many grim and perilous options that you have at your disposal that the intelligent option is, no, we do not
Get back to
dally while
safety.
we're about to die.
Yeah. No, I'm
should
not
be-
blaming you
yeah.
guys. I think you guys acted as your characters would. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't want this to be like I'm blaming you. I'm saying I scared you guys too much and pushed you guys home, which it happened, live and learn. But the healer, the bear droppings where you guys had to get the last one of the last ingredients, and the silent blood rose were 3 things that were all tied to the same encounter, the same sequence of events. And I put it in front of you. I kept trying to put it in front of you, and you guys were like, we're going home. And I was like, how do I and I sat there for like 3 minutes, and I was like, I got nothing. All right.
Why not just have the healer approach us? You could put the healer in our path. If you wanted us to meet
I
the
thought
healer.
about that. That was one of the things I was thinking about, but it threw off everything to where you guys, if you jumped part 1 and got to part 3, then you didn't get part 2, and it was like, but then I probably
meet the
could
healer
have.
with the berries, and she says, "Oh, but did you get any blood rose? This goes well with blood rose. It's this way back."
Yeah, I mean,
that's
but
holding
then
hands.
yeah, but then I feel like I'm
but
just, hey, you guys are fucking up here. Let me put it in your hand.
we
like-
probably still would have ran back, being like, "No time to go back for blood rose."
Yeah, we're leaving. Yeah, it is what it is. Live and learn.
So, question. This is a new DM question for 3 or 4 guys that have some more experience.
You're stuck with us, bud.
Yeah, I know. My point is,
I'm not a DM, so
Well, that's okay, but just in general, with those kinds of situations where, like, you know, players are just like going just a completely different direction, and you don't want to railroad, but you know, for the general enjoyment of the group, do you think it's probably the best decision to give some guidance? I don't necessarily, from my perspective, think that's a terrible thing as long as you're not doing that all the time.
It depends on how you do the guidance, I think.
Yeah. If you describe it as something the player characters would know, like sometimes players just don't get things, and their characters should. Like a soldier, or let's say like a military commander in a fantasy army should know a lot of things about military stuff that your player might not know. And so I think whenever it's something a character should know, or something that you think that they need to know, um, or something that you don't want to leave up to chance. I have a problem with perception skills sometimes, because a lot of things, it's like if you don't see it, then you miss out on something really important that screws you over entirely, or you miss out on something really cool, like a little magic item I put in the bushes for you, which would be really nice to have, and kind of terrible that we missed that now. That kind of thing. So like, I don't know, giving the appropriate knowledge to the characters for the players to utilize in a way that pushes them in the right direction, I think is like, that's an empowering thing. Like, your character would see this. Your character would stop and think about that weird handprint on the wall that's made of blood.
True. So, like, here, let me give an example. So, like,
Sure.
let's say, minor spoilers, Adam, but I'm not worried about it. So, like, let's say something drops in a dungeon, and it's like a piece of parchment, but they can't read all of it because, there's blood splattered on it, or it's burned or something. Like, some of it's missing. Like, being new players, I don't necessarily know that.
Before
Stop.
I know what you're gonna say, so before you give away spoilers, I'll just cut you off. Basically, it's like a puzzle, right? You give the group a puzzle, and they're struggling to figure it out. What I would do in this situation is you step back and you'd be like, what tools do you have at your disposal? What resources do you have to solve whatever this problem is? It could be there's a chasm and you need to get from one side to the other. How do you do it? And they're like, duh, I can't figure it out. And you're like, okay, what tools do you have at your disposal? Then it'll get people looking in their inventory, looking at their spells, looking at, okay, what do we actually have that could help us? Maybe an environmental thing that could help, like we knock over this pillar and then we can climb across it. Okay. So, take a step back, slow them down, and be like, what do you have? Because that kind of gives them a hint, like, hey, you have something that can solve this. Figure it out, work it out together. Or it could be like, you could say, and I've done this before, and this kind of goes with what Pickles is saying is, I've done this in our game where the players will say something. I'm like, actually, as this character from where you are, you would have this knowledge going into this situation. What you do with that is up to you. And so in a situation like what you're talking about, I would step back and be like, at this current time with what you have, you're unable to figure it out. Something needs to change and able to allow you to figure this out. Something needs to happen. It's up to you how you want to go about making that happen. And then as a DM, you have to understand that they could come up with a million different ways of doing that. You have to be willing to, as long as they're creative and it's a good idea, you need to roll with it and build off it. I think rewarding players on creative ideas of problem solving is one of the biggest things, because you could be like, hey, you solve A to C by going through B. And then they're like, well, actually, I want to go here to get there. And you're like, well, I mean, it does work. That's a really creative way to get around this chasm, to get, I didn't think of that, but that's a really good idea. Let's roll with it. Let's see what we can make happen. Yeah. Because what you're referencing, I know what you're referencing. There's a way to solve it. But say they're like, oh, what if we remember that guy we met who had that thing? We could go talk to him. And you're like, the fact that they're remembering NPCs, remembering that they have resources, that's a good idea. Okay. And then you have to think, okay, what would that guy have that could help with this situation? Okay, I'm gonna have him have something to where he can help, because I don't want the players to get there and be like, Yeah, nope, you fail.
Yeah, I think one of my fears going into this campaign with new players is that none of them are going to want to be like adventurous and creative, and they're just going to be like, I hit with my sword, or I cast my cantrip that I've used every other turn, or uh, which and it wouldn't be from them not being creative, it would be from them just not understanding their options. And so I want to help them understand all the things they can do in a turn, especially in combat and stuff, without telling them what to do.
This is from a different perspective, but it might help. At the beginning of King's Crossing, I brought my players, Pickles and Fred, in, and I said, what I've written is the framework of a campaign. I have the world at large. How that looks on a smaller scale and how it looks around your character is going to be written by both of us. And so I want you to have creative freedom to write. If you're like, hey, dwarves speak in an Eastern Slavic dialect. Okay. Now they do. I didn't make that up. He made that up. And now they do.
It's very fun.
Grunkle, you come from a legion of warriors, the Roman army. Grunkle bad berserker. Okay, Grunkle bad berserker. That, how that looks around your character, you wrote that. Now, this is not exactly what you're getting at, but I'm playing with people who, they're not new players, right? So it's a little different. But bringing them in and being like, hey, we call it session 0. It's where you bring them in, you talk about the game, and you say, hey, this is what is expected from me. I'm curious what is expected from you. What do you expect coming into this? And then you can get a feel for, I want to go on adventures. I want to fight big monsters. I want to get rewards. That gives you some stuff to pull from to help give the players what they want. What you bring in is you say, hey, this is what I'm expecting. Creative freedom. I want you guys to know that you have options. This isn't a railroaded video game where you've only got 1, 2, and 3 buttons to push. You could come up, you could design a kingdom. You could build a castle. You could start a criminal mafia. You could, build a racetrack. Like, what you guys want to do will work to make it happen. And that kind of gets the blood rushing and flowing to be like, oh, okay, I have some creative freedom to just plant that idea in their mind at the very beginning and start it out with, hey, you have options. I'm here to work with you. We write this together.
Okay. Yeah, that's good advice.
Pickles, Fred, I'm sure you guys have different ideas, but when we came together at the beginning of King's Crossing, did that help kind of set the tone so that you guys would be like, hey, I can do stuff, I can come up with ideas?
Yes, it let us come up with ideas, but I think the game itself is kind of restrictive in that, if you know what I mean.
So far it has been, but you guys have been stuck in a swamp, so you haven't had
no healer or any of the basic support.
Okay, play a healer. Y'all complain about not having a healer. You could have been a healer. But no, I hear what you're saying.
I think part of it is the system, in a sense, like in how much you can let players get away with stuff. The rule of cool, if you will, of I'm going to let you do this and this gets this bonus. Your system restricts exactly what you have, and Zweihander has a number of actions that you can use, and knowing what actions you can use in a given combat round is sort of what helps you decide what to do, and also where to stretch things. I'm not as certain on 5th edition, but I know that like casters have a lot of different abilities and spells, and martial classes have their abilities as well. The rogue is sneaking in, so much of that system should like tell you what to do, but reminding players of what their options are and then encouraging silly options, I think. Like, you don't want your players just be like, I swing my sword against somebody, but if they say, can I jump on a chandelier and swing over the balcony and then launch off and like drop kick, like stomp on this guy's shoulders as he's attacking my friend, and then you look at the numbers and it says, well, that's even worse than your sword. So no, you probably shouldn't do that. Like, I would say that's the time to bend the rules to make things fun, if you want players to feel encouraged in doing fun things.
Okay, yeah, reward the creativity.
It
That's a
also
big
helps
one.
to know the system, like what things do what. Some systems are more complex, and so you don't want to be like, oh yeah, you get this specific bonus that only level 3 barbarians ever get. Because it's like if we're in Zweihander and you say, yeah, you're so amped up and charged up that when you do your charge attack, you get a plus D6 Fury die. It's like, oh, so my profession thing that I only get when I'm heavily. Oh wait, no, I can run amok anytime I want. Never mind. It's just sort of like, okay, so my abilities are lesser for that rule of cool, and that's the balance you have to take: is know your system, know what the general basic options are, and then balance that with what different classes can do different things. Because this rule goes out the window, of course, if nobody's a barbarian. Who gives a frickle what the non-existent barbarian is losing
Frickle.
from you letting them have a barbarian's power temporarily?
Toughness,
So
do you
just
remember us
knowing
talking about this?
what's that?
There was a point, Tough Nuts and I were talking about something very similar. And I was like, I wish Mr. Pickles was here because he brought up a good point about, say you know, with the rule of cool, say I'm like, oh yeah, like you're so charged up that you're able to do this. And then the person who built the character got all the way up to level 5, specifically with a build to be able to do that, is like, what the hell? Do you remember us talking about this?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, it was in reference to what Pickles is talking about right now. He's the one who put that idea in my head.
Yeah,
But like always make sure your system is working for you. Like you should never be beholden to your system and be like, well, these are the rules, even if I don't like them. You're the DM. You could change whatever you want. And
so
yeah, go for
what
it.
I'm hearing from Pickles is you want to reward the creativity, but you have to make sure it makes sense with that character. Like let's say I'm a wizard, but someone like I want to go and like overpower this character with strength, and my strength sucks, and they come up with some really creative way to overpower the character. I can't just let them do that.
As a DM, you have to flavor it in a way that fits the build. So you as a DM need to know their build and know how the system works. So that way, when your wizard is like, I want to overcome them with strength, you're like, how is that? I want to allow it. That's a great idea. How is
Convince
this
me.
possible?
I
No,
shove my
no.
wand up the troll's nose. Yes,
I
but
got that
doesn't
reference.
use the monk's stunning strike. Harry
But
Potter.
yeah, my thought was, okay, you have a maybe trying to think of what, I don't know all the D&D spell
wand
names,
up a
but you
troll's
have you have a spell that boosts an ally. You flip it around and stab it into yourself, and you get boosted, and you run forward, and you got a random boost of strength, and you hit him. This isn't a normal spell. It's not something you could do all the time. It was a fluke, but it worked.
Okay, and maybe you'd make them like roll and like have a little bit higher of a DC since it's irregular or something. I don't know.
You know, what's sort of interesting, just a parallel to this, Savage Worlds Superheroes has a system where you can spend a Benny, a luck point that you get like a number of each game, and you can get more of if you do creative things. You can spend a Benny to use your power in a way that functions as a different power just for a few turns. So, like, you could be like, I have super speed. I want to run so fast I go invisible for a little bit. Like, that's how fast I want to go. Just I want a burst of speed so that I can fly past the security desk completely invisible, and then you use your Benny, roll a skill check to see if you can do it. And that's something I really like, is a power stunt, as they call it, to use your abilities in an unconventional way a very limited number of times per session is something I think is very tantalizing. I don't know about you guys. Your faces make me think no.
Yeah, it's a
No,
fun idea.
Yeah, it's cool that the system actually has it built in.
Yeah, I think that's all valuable input, and you guys can see where I'm coming from with those questions because it'll probably be things that come up. So,
Fifth
just trying
edition, which you're using,
Yeah.
has inspiration.
Yeah.
So I would, if I were you, I'd become very intimately aware with like what inspiration is, how often you can give it out, how often you should be giving it out, because that could also be something that really encourages this creative behavior. If people know I do something that's not really that great, like swing on a chandelier and do reduced damage but move and it's fun, I'll get an inspiration and I can use that to make other things better. That's a good way of influencing player behavior, I think.
Taco Bell.
Okay, we could talk.
To go off of that, and sorry, I was swallowing my food. To go off of that, something we talked about at the beginning of the show, D&D. We were talking about the difference between in-person groups and online groups. In in-person groups, you can do a lot more and get a lot more of the immersion and get the heart and the feel, the emotion behind the game. Where you've got players high-fiving and cheersing and being like, yo, we slayed the demon, like, drink. And the other guy's like, okay. You can do that in an in-person group. In an online group, I have not ever once saw my players be like, high five through the computer screen, like, cheers, I want to give a rousing speech, and like prepares this song and sings the song. In an in-person group, you have the handouts. You made all these nice... Not giving away spoilers. There are things that can be handed out, right? There's handouts in any D&D game. There's handouts. In an in-person group, you can see, you can feel it, you can design it and make it the way you want. In an online party, I can show it to the players, and the reaction I get is, okay. Even if I went through and designed this whole thing myself, made this whole like scroll written, burn the edges on this like image and made all this graphic art, and I show it to the players and they go, okay. In person, it's like, whoa, like we got this map, like let's check it out. And I think there's a lot more of that heart and feel behind it, right? So this is getting to what we were talking about. Inspiration is something that I feel like I've listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff, and I feel like DMs got lazy and they just kind of give this out. Not ragging on you, Pickles. I'm agreeing with what you're saying, but I want to take it a step further. Instead of just being like, good idea, inspiration. Give rewards. And this is something I need to do better with King's Crossing, is give reward. When they come up with ideas, when they do stuff, give rewards. Reward the players. Like I said, I scared them so much that they ran home. If I had been rewarding them more for acting out and doing stuff and coming up with ideas and exploring, I feel like they would have been like, that trail, we should go home, but we could be rewarded. They didn't see the reward because I hadn't been rewarding them for what they were doing. So instead of just being like inspiration, even if I had done that, that would have been better than doing nothing, which is what I was doing. But something, I mean, you're an in-person group. You could give handouts. You could be like, I don't know, say you ordered pizza and you didn't tell the party, and you're like, you guys exploit the cave. You get to the bottom and you find a treasure trove of food. This whole feast was prepared. You guys just slayed the people. It's brand, great food. And you pull out all this pizza and put it in front of the party. And you're like, you guys got pizza. And they're like, what the hell? That I would be like, yo, that's so much better than inspiration. I got pizza. Like, I don't know. Coming up with ideas like that, I think is a creative. It rewards not only the players are the ones who have creative freedom. The DM does too.
Yeah.
Pizza would be a really nice reward.
Tough nuts. I'm fully expecting pizza.
Thanks, guys. I will try my best. I don't know how I'd keep that secret in an apartment. But
I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
That's just an idea. Or drinks, you have a case of beer in the fridge that, you pull out, you guys, you guys save the guy, he buys you a bunch of drinks at the bar, pull out the pack of beer, and you're like, you all get drinks, and you pass out beers to everybody, or, whatever.
All right, yeah, noted. That's made me hungry for pizza, so I'm going to go heat up the oven. I'll be right.
Fair enough. I don't know. Hopefully that wasn't offensive. I wasn't getting on you for saying inspiration.
No. I just meant it's a tool of positive reinforcement for behavior.
I just meant expanding on it. Like, you could do more than just inspiration. Like, in D&D, that's all they have. They have inspiration. Like, you're right. That's what it is.
Well, yeah. Like, there's all sorts of ways of motivating players. It's just that's one that I've found myself slacking on. I've read up more of how Savage Worlds works, and bennies are something you need to be handing out because everybody says there's nothing better than sitting there with a stack of bennies ready to do something kick ass the way you want to kick ass. and not be a floundering fool who's like, oh, I pooped my pants in the middle of combat.
And knowing that you can use Benny, because the only reason I used a Benny was to reroll.
Yeah,
That's the only time
and you
I
can
ever
also
used a
use that
Benny.
to soak damage.
Yeah, but see, I never did that. I didn't get damaged. I just got knocked out constantly. But
I mean, damage is another motivator there. Like, just like inspiration is a positive reinforcement, damage is something that motivates players as well in a negative fashion. Like, you can control player behavior by influencing how likely they are to receive damage. Like, when I had you guys down in a hole underneath the strange town of Golden Ridge, I was very careful with how many enemies I put against you guys. 5 versus 2. That's a bit unfair. But I made 3 of them minions, I think, and I made 1 or 2 of them wild cards to a small extent.
yeah,
They just had more health.
I think 2 of them were wild cards. 3 of them were normal.
But I carefully calculated based on your armor. I wanted them to have a small chance of damaging you guys, but not like
Or
I
Fred.
don't know who you're pointing.
Oh,
Oh,
Fred's
you're
right there
because
for me.
Fred's over there on your screen. Okay,
Yeah.
he's to the left of you, so you pointed at Tough Nuts.
Tough
And I was
Nuts.
like, I don't know why Tough Nuts is getting damage, but yeah,
no,
I kept
Fred
the
got his
percentages
throat
at
ripped.
a lower level because well, Savage Worlds is just so easy to calculate. It's like +2 is you sort of want it to succeed, +4 you demand it to succeed, and then you just do the inverse for wanting it to not succeed. I can't kiss Savage Worlds enough.
That's where with Zweihander, I'm sitting here like, God, part of me just wishes it would be 5th edition, because I feel like it would just be so simple. But the other part of me is like, there's a reason I'm not doing this in 5th edition. So, it's really just comes down to, I need to be more familiar with the system, so that way I can be a benefactor for you guys rather than being like, well, you guys are fucked.
But Zweihander's such a big book. I have it on my desk here. It's like
There's a lot.
literally the size of 3 other of any book.
And that's the
Like, I
biggest
have-
problem for me is I don't retain by reading through the book. Like, I've read through the book, but my biggest thing is I'm going to become proficient playing it.
Yeah, that's 100%. I just want to mention that for people who don't know Savage Worlds as well. That it's a very simple system. It's a very sleek, sexy book, a thin book. Well, let's just call it thin book. And it's such an easy system to pick up. Like, after you've learned how to make a character, everything else is so simple. And that's why it's easy to talk about it like that. Whereas Zweihander is like 5 Savage Worlds. It's like the Jupiter to Savage Worlds Earth.
Well, I mean,
It's not
if you take D&D and all the lore behind it and all supplement and all this extra stuff that comes, like,
yeah,
there's
it's
a
about
lot.
the same size as Zweihander.
Yeah, that's what all that is Zweihander. Which,
Yeah, but this Zweihander is a thick book.
it's ridiculous. And
You could kill somebody robbing your house with it.
And that's the thing is, like, a lot of that I don't even use because I would prefer to homebrew stuff. And so, like, I see their deities and I'm like, I don't really like these. So I made all my own. But then you guys as players are like, we don't have any books to go read because you changed everything. So it's like, what do we bring to the table? And that's where I think when Tough was talking about Adam coming to him as a DM and being like, let's talk about it and do that. I was like, damn, I'm jealous. Like, I wish I had that. But then I think about it, and I was like, well, we did do that. I feel like, to give you guys a fair shake, I feel like we had a whole session where we sat here and we talked about our characters and their roles in the world, and you guys were open. I mean, I think we sat there for, like, it's a 2-hour-long video.
Yeah,
It was a good long video, yeah.
Yeah, where we got to, kind of work on... Because you guys came in with your characters, and then we expanded on them and just learned about your character, and you guys were like, and we fight goats. And I'm like, okay, you fight goats.
And then you took it so far as to say we don't have goats, so my dream of dwarves riding goats into battle was ruined.
We fight goblins on goats. You fight goblins on goats, not?
No, yeah, I thought, no,
We
wait,
can't even
yeah.
fight goblins.
You fight goatlands. Oh, no, wait, because
Goatlands.
goblins work for me. That's right. Sorry.
Yeah, goblins work for you. I don't know what, we haven't figured out what he fought in the Deep Dark Down. Maybe that's
We fought something. It was dangerous.
yeah.
We'll
I was
figure it
thinking those rat people who don't talk. What is their name?
Skaven.
The Ratlings,
Skaven?
Skavens. Yeah, Skaven.
Well,
Yeah.
Skaven's more Warhammer. But
Or there's
I think they do talk.
the bird one from D&D. I can't remember what they are.
We could totally
Kenku.
steal the Skaven.
Kenku. That's the one I was thinking.
Maybe Kinku, but I didn't want to say that. That
I mean,
sounds like
why
you're
would there
talking
be
about your
birds in
kinks.
the tunnel, though?
I don't know. There's goblins in a Roman legion. All right, leave me alone.
I would say your genre helps to determine how much you can let players in on your homebrew. Because fantasy, it's easy to let players in on your homebrew and be like, you can make this stuff too. But if you're like me and you like to make scary games, horror stories that are like horrible things happen, and you're here to solve the mystery, you're here to get the thrills, and you're here to beat the clown till he cries paint. Like a flaw with that can be that you don't really have room for your players to create things. So my advice for as a new DM, and I think you're probably doing this, but I just want to admit my own faults so that you learn my lessons and you don't have to experience them yourself, is always leave room for your players to create something. They have to be able to make something, because if they're not contributing, they're not going to care. Or they will slowly stop caring.
And I would say you've done that to an extent, even in the strange town of Golden Ridge. There was a whole point where I was talking to some lady who kept woofing at me.
She suddenly didn't exist.
Turns out I just have schizophrenia. So
That's not true though, because you found out in another episode that
other people have heard
the
this
YouTube
ghost
guy
woof at
next
them.
door.
Yeah. No, I know. It's become a
Hope I
thing,
don't
but
torture him later.
that whole idea of this ghost lady who barks at people, I wrote that. I'm proud of it. Shut up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is your creation that we ripped off of, and now it's
You're
a
like,
thing.
you're a DM, and the best you could come up with is a crazy lady who works at a coffee shop who barks at you. Leave me alone, all right?
Hey, the guy at the graveyard knew her.
Don't at me. I went to. There's a casino in town. You know why? Because your boy wanted to go make some money.
Oh, well, I was gonna say because people like invested money in making a casino, but
I don't know if you
Paid
had a
permits.
casino already written into the adventure, but I was like, I'm going to the casino, and you're like, you're going to a casino.
yeah, there never actually was a casino because
See,
Yeah.
you're allowing
But-
me
but
to
yeah, you
write
have to
stuff
leave
in the
room.
modern.
Yeah.
because otherwise, like I had a campaign where I had like a brisk pace and there's adventure and there's a world-ending goal, and I left no room for players to do anything that was like, I want to go in this direction. It was always
That one
being
did.
yanked by a chain around their throats of, you're here to stop the universe from ending.
That one bit me in the ass.
Well, and it was. I see it mostly as the flaw for myself is you have to give players room to create in the setting, in the story, and to create with like I don't know, the energy. And I feel like that was something that was really lacking, which led to its demise.
I think the biggest thing here, the biggest takeaway is you have to encourage or enable or reward players investing in the game, because that is what's going to, one, keep your game going for multiple sessions, and two, keep your players being excited to come back and like taking notes and coming back and being like, oh, I know who Mateo is, I know who Adislin is, I know the god of drink is Inebria, because they have that passion and they're excited about it because they're invested. And I think the biggest thing is getting your players to invest in the game is going to create that lasting impact.
Yes. Because then they'll come up with stuff once they're invested. Once you have them like, I want to live here, I want to be in this setting, that's when they start making up stuff where it's like, yeah, because obviously this restaurant's on that street. Well, you guys are doing fantasy, so that doesn't make sense. But yeah, that's my favorite tavern, you know. I've been to this town before. And then you can be like, yeah, you have been to this town before. You know these things that I actually just wanted to drop as clues. I'm just going to give you a little folder full of clues here.
Yeah, I'm going to just let you run with it. And like a new player joins the party and the party's like, yo, we have to take you to Hobbs Lodge. That's the place to be. We've been there. We know the bartender. We'll get you in. And the new player's like, okay. The reason why is because those players are invested. They've been there. They've done this stuff. They invested in it. And you're rewarding them for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I'll
This
try
is
it.
all like common sense stuff, but it's sometimes you learn a lesson so painfully that you want to share it with other people, even if those people are like, well, yeah, obviously you shouldn't like slap your friend because then they're gonna not like you for that.
That's one
But
of those
you'd be
things though that you
surprised.
could do unintentionally, even if you already know it. And
Yes.
so,
Yeah, with good
Unintentionally,
intentions.
like you could unintentionally like fuck it up, is what you mean?
yeah, like I know that concept,
Yeah.
but I still have to be intentional about not doing it so that I don't screw it up. You know?
Perfect example. I was sitting here being like, reward your players for adventure for creating, and I didn't do that, and my players ran away. So,
You gave us
Yeah.
a swamp to bathe in.
right, but I it's not really a
Broke one in the
reward.
bathhouse. You
Yeah.
gave me a...
I'm
Yeah,
sitting
we'll
here
see,
preaching
Adam.
like, yeah,
I'll try.
reward, even though I
Well,
didn't.
yeah,
do that.
it's easy to say like the ideals. It's easy to know the ideals, but it's so hard sometimes to write that in a way that is fun and interesting to yourself, and then also to a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Like I'll be the first to admit it. I've got some stupid ideas, but I love writing my stupid ideas and trying to make them into workable games, and so it's really hard to go from the principle or ideal status of writing into this is a game I've made.
Or you leave room to improvise, like improv it throughout the game. Like you've got your key points, and then you know, okay, I'm going to improv the rest, and then you get to the end of the session, and you're like, oh, I forgot to do that. Oops.
Well, that's where I think your notes should be simple because the players will always find out the way. You just need to find out what they need to get to.
Right, but I'm saying,
And
like,
they'll-
say
they'll
your
solve
notes
everything
are
else for
you
you.
need to go here, but then you forget to reward them for going out and doing this other exploratory thing, and you're like, oh, I knew I was supposed to reward you, but you're in the session, things are happening, you're moving, and then you forget stuff, and
Yeah.
maybe that's just me
That
because I have a
happens.
bad memory. But
That's why I think your DM notes should be very simple so that you can just read a few lines and be like, I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I know my main objectives, improv the rest, write it down, and say that you wrote it down the first time.
yeah, I
Because your
think
players won't know.
to be fair to your players and to yourself, handle it like a college project. If you show up and you did it the morning of 5 minutes before, that's the result you're going to get. And I think it was actually Tough Nuts who said you get out of it what you put into it. I agree. If I spend a week working on my next session, making sure I know what's going on in my next session, I can come into the next session and I don't have to be sitting here reading through a page of notes being like, I can be like, I know what needs to happen because I'm invested. As a DM, I'm invested and I know what needs
Right.
to be rolling.
Right, and it goes both ways, right? Because players too, like if they don't want to try it like at all, then they're not going to get much out of it.
That's where you're going to be
Right.
seeing them. Well, I'm talking about online games, but you're going to be seeing them. Their camera's here, they're over here, and you can see the monitor flicking off their face as they're scrolling through Facebook or something. And you're just sitting here trying to DM for them, and you're like, okay, I can tell you're not invested in my game. And that's when they show up the next week, and you're like, what happened last week? Someone give us a recap. And they're like,
That's when I go, damn it, I was paying attention. I check my notes and I go, oh, thank God I have Evernote. Evernote, the free note-taking program. Not sponsored.
There's our sponsor.
Well, it's my sponsor.
Yeah,
But
one
I
day.
mean, they don't pay me $35 a week, anyways. But it's like, so I just check my notes because I've got memory like
Like a rat.
normal person.
Oh,
No, I've got a
never mind.
normal memory, but still, it's like
Better
it's
than
nice
rest.
to be like, this is the exact quest we were going on. These are the people that I know their names, and this is what they do, and generally what they're good at. We met this guy, they're royalty, and I don't give a fuck. And it's like, well, why? Well, that's not a good note take. Why'd you say you don't give a? I need an actual like role. Is it the Duchess? What, I mean, terrible. But still, you at least have that to go off of, and that always makes a DM feel really hot.
Yeah, if they came back and they remember anything from the last adventure, I'm like, yes. Like, if we come back for part 2 and I'm like, somebody told me about part 1, and they're like, there was a kid. I'm like, perfect. At least they got that.
You could just, I'm literate, so I just read my notes before each session for games. I do
We
that for
can't
endless
talk
games,
too much. We can't talk about it too much. Adam's got to watch through the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, we've given away all these spoilers.
All the spoilers.
Spoilers.
I'm going to learn the entire story before we even start.
He does. He does say he likes listening to podcasts and stuff. King's Crossing. King's Crossing is getting released. It's a shit show, and audio is over the place because my audio was all fucked up at one point. But eventually it gets better. By like episode 8, it probably gets good.
All right.
We've only recorded 7 episodes.
It will be good because we're gonna have Nimwit with us.
Nimwit, yeah.
Or Nimwort.
It's Nimwit, but I'm glad you called him
not
Nimwit.
what it said at all.
Yeah.
The G is silent.
And potentially others, maybe.
Nobody's. Oh, I thought you were going to talk about my game there.
No, Pickles, it's not all about you.
Nobody wants to...
saying Adam should come join King's Crossing.
Yeah, we need to kidnap
2 additional
Adam.
characters.
We need to kidnap Adam for the strange town of Golden Wade.
No, nobody. Let me go on a tangent really quick. I have to jump off and make dinner, but I just want to go on a tangent. Like, we're talking about like the turnoffs of games and like how fantasy is a major. Like, yeah, everybody loves fantasy, and sci-fi. Sci-fi's fun, but modern is just nobody likes that. And even further, modern horror. I feel like horror specifically is one of those things where you have to trust the DM a lot to do it in a way that's fun and not like punishing. Like, because you hear horror and you think, oh, we're powerless against these monsters? We're going to be running and hiding? Is this Amnesia, the Dark Descent? I don't really want to do that.
We weren't powerless, though. That's the thing.
Yes, and that's the key thing is you have to
shut
have
the
that
fuck
trust
out that
established.
First one was like,
We did. We saw a monster and both of us just drew and
Yeah, that's well, that was my goal, was to make it so you guys didn't necessarily feel powerless. Because what I love about horror movies is the idea of, okay, so this was fun. What if we did this in a way where we had my friends like being badasses, being like, the nun, we're gonna blast this stupid demon nun away with our guns. It's like, yes, let's kick some ass. Let's dive into this impossible situation in a way that's possible. Rise up and kick some ass. And so that's the way I approach it. But I always know, like, I say horror and people think, oh yeah, no, I don't want to play Hostel where I'm the one being blowtorched in the eye.
I was gonna say, when you brought this idea to me, I'm not interested, but I don't get to play in any D&D games. There's no games for me to play in. Pickles was like, I have a game, and I was like, thank God, I don't even care, whatever. Yeah, thank God.
That's how I get them. That's how I get them. I don't care.
So I'll be honest. I was like, I really don't care about this story, but I get to play D&D. However, after Adventure 1, I'm sitting here like, yo, who are these monster things? Why were they underground? Why was the room welded and these things were like locked in there and there was a whole dugout? Like, I've got questions, and now I'm invested. This is what I'm talking about. Like, now as a player, I'm invested in a story that I was like, meh, I'm just here to play D&D. Now I'm sitting here like, yo, Travis is gonna find out. And that's where Pickles is like, well, should we move on to a different... Yeah, and it... Pickles was like, should we move on to a different setting, system, a different game? I was sitting here like, I would if it got us more players and like more engagement, but Travis wanted to know what's going on with these monsters, you know? Now you got me. So as much as I'm like, I understand why players wouldn't want to join this campaign, because if I had options, I wouldn't have joined this campaign, but now that I'm in and I'm invested, I'm like, actually, it's a good game. If you guys got invested, you'd see it's a good game and you'd be involved. It's like if you watch a TV show and you're like, should I not?
Pilot
Is it really
sucks.
worth it? Yeah. And then someone who's like, yo, once you get to like, I think it was South Park. I was like, I don't watch South Park. And then Pickles was like, if you get to this point, it's worth it.
The
it's
first
good.
3 seasons.
That's what I feel like I am. I'm sitting here like, yo, you guys, I know, get past the on paper, this is the summary of what the game is about. Play it. It's worth it. It's fun. So.
Something I will say about the strange town of Golden Ridge is it would probably be better if we didn't have a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I do agree there. I like a group of 2 to 3, to be honest. I feel like that's
we
the
could
ideal.
add maybe one more if we really want to.
Yeah, I agree. I like the
Yeah.
dynamic you guys have, because I mean, a good scary story doesn't have a big party. If it does have a big party, those people get picked off.
They get murdered out. Yeah.
And so I think like having two lead characters is probably ideal, um, in that there's isolation in that. You guys don't have other people to lean on in the group. Once it's like 4 or 5 people, it's like we have friends to lean on. That guy has the door. He has the back door. She's watching from the upstairs window with a sniper. You know, you have more options, but it's easier to overwhelm you and generate that fear of like, oh my gosh, these are monsters when it's just 2 of you.
We started Strange Giant Golden Ridge with just me.
Yeah, and
I
I can
remember
do a
that.
1-player game.
And
Yeah.
I remember that, and I was so thankful when Fred came in, and I was like, Fred, please play. Because
'Cause you hated.
one, it wasn't a game that I was even really interested in, and I was like, all the pressure was on me. The spotlight was on me literally for 3 hours straight, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
God. So having someone to share some of that burden with, not really a burden, but, you know, carry the game, I was
The
like,
spotlight, yeah.
I was like, oh, thank God. 3 people, I think, is perfect. 3 people, I'd say, is like the pristine group. And I will take this back to I want to say one shot, but it was a short adventure where I played a little character named Prodigy.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys really liked that one shot.
That was perfect. There was 3 players.
Such a simple one shot.
It was perfect, and it's interesting too because it was with players that we didn't bond well. The players did not work well across different games, but that game, smooth, flawless, and
That was weird.
It was
Like,
weird, but it worked.
It was literally just like I wanted to have like a step away from the game where it was like, okay, your heroes and everything, you're gonna play your enemies now. Your enemies are going to do a hit mission, like they're gonna go kill somebody, and that's all there is to it. I was like, oh, that's pretty lame. You just have one location, basically, a couple like secondary locations you can go to if you want extra supplies or more information. But you go to the location, you scope out, you kill people, you move on.
I played a mute character in that one too.
Yeah, well, and since you're all asshole, evil, like psychopaths, it's like you can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
And then
it was great.
That was a weird time because everybody had fun. I had fun, and it was like,
Yeah,
should I do an evil campaign?
I'd say
So squeamish.
I know, I'm thinking about it too. I've never done any like actual "you guys are the bad guys" campaign, but I'm like, maybe, I don't know, it could be fun. Maybe not a full like 5-year campaign, but maybe, you know, start out with one shots like you did. But yeah, I'd say 3 is my nominal player group size. But I would say 3 to 4 would be my preferred. 5 would be my max. I think if I got to the point where I had 6, I would just split them into 2 groups.
Yeah.
I think if we get more than 3 on the town of Golden Ridge specifically, it'd be too much.
Yeah, I agree with a scary game. Yes, a fantasy game and then like sci-fi and supers. Well, maybe supers not so much, but sci-fi and fantasy. I think 3 to 4 is more reasonable.
I think the problem with the horror is it would get to the point where we would outnumber anything, and I'd be like, you know, there's 5 of us. Like, what are you, you know, like what are you gonna do?
I can overwhelm you guys.
No, I
wouldn't
wouldn't feel the horror aspect of it. I would be like, there's strength in numbers, you know, there's 5 of us, we can, any situation, we can pretty much cover all avenues that need be. Whereas if you have 2 of us, it's like, bro, we gotta work together. Like, if we're gonna get out of here, like, I need your help.
What about player count with like virtual versus in person? Because I feel like I don't know. Like, I feel like maybe in person it'd be a little easier to have more people and the banters than like with online.
It is a bit easier, I'd say. It's like it's easier to not interrupt people. It's easier to get social cues. It's easier to not be me, like interrupting everybody and just snapping into sentences. But it's also like there's also the spotlight thing. I think I stepped into you saying this earlier, Wrath. Is just there is a percentage of spotlight, and everybody's going to be dividing it or hogging it. I played in a game recently where I think there was a session where I said 3 words total. And I was like, yeah, human druid, spelljammer.
because he was sharing the spotlight with like what 6 players or something. I'm sitting here like, God.
Yeah, nobody. I didn't push for it. Nobody cared.
Yeah. I agree with everything Pickles was saying. In-person groups, you don't have mic quality, because if you have 3 people talking at one time on here, you're not going to understand anyone. If you have 3 people talk to you in person, you can pick it up, and you're like, oh, okay, you guys didn't cut each other out through audio quality. And social cues, like Pickles was saying, you can see body language, you can see emotions and expressions. It's not, you don't have to look over at your cameras or whatever the case may be. It also really depends on, well, last point that Pickles said is team dynamic. Are people going to hog all the spotlight? Are people going to share it willingly? When you've got 6 people playing together, it's like, that's a lot of different inputs. Each person's going to be bringing something different to the table. Are they all going to blend well together? Granted, you're just blessed by the gods and got a group who have been friends for 10 years and work perfectly together. I know, right? But
I rolled that 20.
yeah, you did.
Son of a bitch.
But I think the other big aspect is how much time you have. If you're stuck in a game where you only get to play together for an hour and a half, there's not a lot of time for 5 different people. I mean, basically within that time, say the DM takes half of that time because they're the actual storyteller. So then you've got 45 minutes split between 5-6 people. Everyone's getting 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and that's for the entire hour and a half session. That's all they get because you're limited.
Yeah.
But in an in-person group, when we do an online group, you're able to get together for an hour, 2 hours, and then people got stuff they got to go do. In an in-person group, people drove there. They're gonna be there. They've already committed to being there for the time designated. It's not like, they're over at your place and they're like, yeah, I'm grounded.
So I have a date.
Yeah, I have a date.
But Mark, you just got here.
Yeah.
The gamers.
Yeah, the gamers. I was like, we watched that show. Yeah.
I will say that if you do something online like we do, the cameras are necessary because it helps with the facial expressions and all that.
It helps so much.
It does.
It also helps to see when other people are talking, because like if Pickles wanted to say something right now and he's like, I don't see that, so I'm just gonna keep filling in dead space. Go ahead.
So like when I do the Russian accent, it's hard for me, at least personally, to convey different tones in the accent. So I replace it with facial expressions. Or like if I'm talking to Grunkle, I'll look up at Pickle and talk that away.
And that's that RP, that's that immersion. When you're online, cameras, I see so many people who are like, yeah, I'd play it, but I'm not using a camera. And I'm like, you're missing so much from the experience.
There's so much you're missing in this. So much.
I have seen him
disagree
literally
with Fred,
turn and talk to Grunkle, and I love it every time because I'm like, that's so much RP. Like I feel I see his dwarf being like, "Hey,
the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, actually, I take it back. I don't disagree. I was gonna say, like, you do convey a lot of emotion with your Pervecic voice, and like, yeah, I think I get a lot of what you say and your tone with him for what you're wanting to feel towards Grunkle, I think. But then when you did look up like that, I was like, oh yeah, I've looked over a few times and you do that consistently.
It's the RP. It's something you miss.
What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
What did you get us into?
Like I was
You're
saying,
right. You do that, yes.
In an in-person group, you get that experience. You get the emotion and the immersion and the vibe, the energy, the passion. In online groups, it's so hard to translate that.
Especially with people who are strangers and not familiar with each other.
Yeah.
But
so let's just say if you well, yeah, we're wrapping up. If you have a D&D like TTRPG experience that you get the opportunity to enjoy, if you ever had the opportunity to do that, you pretty much struck a fucking gold mine.
Yeah.
If there was one way to start your TTRPG experience, you literally nailed it on the head with what you've acquired.
Well, I'll keep you posted.
Cultivate your friends. Make sure you don't make them go sour. Like just go for a fun time. You don't have to play by the rules all the time.
And if you feel like it, put in a little accent. It definitely helps with the immersion.
That and body language. You don't have to like come dressed in robe and sword and be like, "Rah, rah, rah," but I mean, get into character. Be like, but why? Why would you do that? That's not necessary, but it shows emphasis and it tells the story.
Like pretend if there's like a guy that's taller than you, look up at him. It just helps convey what you're trying to get across. That you're this tiny dwarf talking to this big guy, and you don't care that he's taller than you. You're gonna tell him what's on your mind.
It really does.
Remember
When
that,
I
Adam.
see him
You're
do
shorty.
that, it helps so much.
Yes.
I'm sitting here and I love it. I'm like, anyways, that's it from us. This has been whatever this talk show is going to be called. Possibly another version of Under the Table. I don't know if that needs to be so. I don't know. Thanks for hanging out. This has been Fred, Tough Nuts, Adam, and Mr. Pickles, and myself. A bunch of guys who just kind of showed up and decided to talk RPGs. So every Monday night for me, East Coast time, starting at 7 p.m., we're going to be here. Well, I'm going to be here, and whoever decides to show up, you guys can show up whenever. It's a 3-hour segment, and if you show up, you show up. If you don't show up, if you're only able to show up for 5 minutes, whatever. And then all of you guys in chat are always more than welcome to join. You can ask us questions, talk about RPGs. We've talked about MMOs. We've talked about video games. We've talked about books. We've talked about D&D, Zweihander. Any RPG topic is pretty much open to discussion. Really, I just wanted this to be friends hanging out, kicking back, chatting. That's really all this is. So, anyways, guys, cheers. I don't have a drink in front of me, unfortunately. I gotta go get one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.